guys, welcome back for episode number 124. With Halloween being on Thursday, I really wish that I had prepared a list of spooky themed games to play this Halloween. I know I did a video about spooky themed games previously. I cannot remember if it was last year or the year before. I honestly don't know how many years ago I made that video, but I feel like I need to create an updated list, because an updated list would definitely contain Dreadful Meadows, which I think right now is the most perfect game that you can find for Halloween. I just absolutely adore the artwork. The mechanics are really good. The game is really good. So I don't know. I feel like I really need to come out with a new list for Halloween, but sadly that did not happen this year. It's just been so crazy busy, but hopefully next year, and hopefully by next year I might have my own Halloween game finished. So yeah, so we'll see. Who knows? So I think that's it. And again, I do not think I'm gonna get through like all the games that I've played in like the last month or so. So things are just piling up. So some of them I might just have to drop off, but there were a couple of requests about games that I discussed in this video. So I might discuss those, as well as some games that I played recently, including one that's launching on Kickstarter soon. Okay, so let's just get started. So let's talk about Shallow Sea. This is a game which is hitting Kickstarter, I believe, on Tuesday. So this is a 2025 game for 1 to 4 players, designed by Yeom CW, and the art is done by Sophia King, and it's published by Bad Comet Games. And this is the same publisher who did Wondrous Creatures most recently, as well as the Wild Serengeti game and Life of the Amazonia. So this is a really good game. I played a 3-player game of this last night. And I should mention that I was paid to do an overview video for this game, but this segment is not sponsored, but my overview video is of course going to be sponsored. So this is of course a pre-production copy, so components and things are subject to change, but honestly I feel like everything in this is just near perfect, like really nice. So here is an individual player board, and you're going to be placing tiles onto this board, which I'll get into in a minute. So each person is just going to have their own player board, and then you have a variety of components. So you have different kinds of fish tokens, which are really nice in different colors. So like yellow, green, orange, and purple, I believe, are all the colors of the fishies. You've got various sea life tiles, which are scoring tiles, and I'll get into how you score these and flip them over onto your board and stuff. So when we get into gameplay, I'll explain all of that. So there's a variety of different scoring sea life tiles. And then there are all of these coral tiles. So there's a whole bunch of different types of coral. So like, for example, here's a yellow one, and here is the back of the yellow one. Here's a red one, here's the back, and they're just of all different types. So like, for example, here, I'll show you. So for example, here's a purple one, and on this purple one you can see that the 2 corners are red and 2 corners are purple. But on this purple one corner is purple, 1 is red, and 1 is yellow. And I'll explain what all of that means when we start discussing how to play. And then there are some public objective cards that you will be trying to meet. So 1 of each type, and I can explain all of that when we get to it. So basically, and the last component I need to show you are these seashells, which I imagine in the Kickstarter they're going to come out with some deluxe seashells, because they always come out with really nice deluxe components for their Kickstarters. Excuse me. So I'm going to throw pictures, but you are going to have a row of tiles. So you're going to have coral tiles, and you'll have it this side up. So, but you'll always be able to tell what color is on the other side, because color can be important. So here you'll see the point value of this tile if you manage to complete it, and what color is going to be on the other side. But when you place it onto your board, you're going to place it onto your board this side up. So there's going to be a row of coral tiles, and underneath that there's going to be a fish below each tile, and beneath that, below each fish, there is going to be a row of those scoring tiles, the sea life tiles. And those will also be with the scoring condition side up. And when you meet the scoring condition, then you can flip it over. But you will always see how many points you will get if you've managed to complete the tile. So you're going to, on your turn, select a combination of a fish and a tile. So either you'll select the coral tile and the fish, or you'll select the fish and the scoring tile. So one or the other. You're not going to get two tiles or yeah, so you have to select one tile and the fish that is associated with that tile. So either above it or below it, depending on which tile you're getting. You could, however, spend a seashell in order to mix and match. So you can spend a seashell in order to get a tile, but get a different fish that is not above or below that tile. So if there's a fish you really want, you can spend a seashell to do that. Alternatively, you can spend a seashell in order to wipe out the row of something in order to replenish it with new items. So you can either wipe out the row of coral tiles, you can wipe out the row of fishies, or you can wipe out the row of scoring sea life tiles and then replenish them with a new offering. So you can only do one or the other. You can only spend a seashell token in order to take a mismatched tile and fish, or to wipe out a row. You cannot do both on one turn. However, on one turn, you can spend two seashells to move a fish on your board. So when you're placing tiles on your board, everyone is going to start with one scoring tile on their board, which they will get to place anywhere. And the game will continue until the first player has 4 empty spaces left on their board, and then everyone will finish their turn, and then you'll go to game end scoring. So when you're placing tiles, you of course are placing them into the tile slots. You can rotate the tile in any way you want. And then the fish you just took must be placed adjacent to a tile on your board. And it doesn't have to be adjacent to the one that you just placed, but any tile that's already on your board. And you will place the fishies on these bubbles that you see on your board. And again, tiles must be placed adjacent to other pre-existing tiles. So they can be adjacent by the points or by the sides. So that is considered adjacent. Once you've placed a coral tile, you are going to be trying to meet that tile's objective. So what I mean by objective is that you need to have a fish of that color on this bubble and a fish of this color on this bubble. And once you've done that, then you can flip this over to its scoring side. And then immediately you must move one of the fishies that was used to complete that tile on top of the coral tile itself. So as you're filling out your board more and more, there's going to be tiles that share fishies. Like, so for example, you might have these two tiles sharing a purple fish on your board. And then when you complete one of them, you might want to leave the purple fish so that it still satisfies the other tile, because if you move the purple fish onto this tile, then this one is now going to need a new purple fish. So you're going to have those decisions to make throughout the game, and you're going to be trying to strategically place your tiles so that you can be more efficient with the fish you have and flip over more and more tiles. Every time you flip over a tile, whether it's a coral tile or a sea life tile that you've met the scoring condition for, you will gain a seashell. And everyone is limited to a maximum of 5 seashells at any one time. You cannot have more than 5 available to use on your board at any one time. So each person has a supply of 5 seashells that they're given at the beginning, and you start with 2 seashells placed on your board. That's how you start the game. And that is essentially the game. So you're going to continue in that fashion on your turn, picking a tile and a fish, and optionally using a seashell to wipe out a row or take a mismatched tile and fish and place that tile and fish on your board. And you might start triggering various flips on your board. So you might end up flipping a couple of tiles at once on your board. And again, you can use 2 seashells to move a free fish from one bubble to another. And by free, I mean that it's just on a bubble. So it could even be assigned to a tile, but later, like assigned meaning it's next to it and that tile needs that fish to score. But maybe you decide you actually want to move that fish elsewhere because that other tile will score higher points, more points for you, and the fish will just do better over there. So you can always spend 2 seashells in order to move a fish from one bubble to another. You cannot move a fish that has been placed on top of a flipped over coral tile. Now let's just go over some of the scoring tiles, the sea life tiles. So I've already explained what these tiles look like and how you will need the matching fish on the bubble in order to flip this over so that it scores points at the end of the game. However, scoring tiles, I'll just show you a couple examples. So this one means that if you had this positioned like this, you would want 3 tiles above it in that orientation that do not have matching fish types on them. So that would have been coral tiles which you completed that do not have the same fish type on them. So one fish would be purple, one might be yellow, and one might be green. They cannot be the same color. And if you manage to flip this over, then you will score that many points at the end of the game. So your board is going to get prettier and prettier as you start acquiring, flipping over more of these sea life tiles, which will show you different kinds of sea life on the back of them. Really, really pretty. This one, you will need 3 of the same types of coral in the same row. So, and they don't have to be adjacent to each other. So on a really long row, you might be able to have, so for example, if this was on this space, you have 4 available spaces. So the 3 similar types do not need to be adjacent to each other. You might be able to skip one spot with a different kind of tile. So that is what that one is. This one shows that you need 2 different coral types in that position to this tile. So there's just a whole variety of these different kinds of scoring tiles, and the harder ones obviously are going to give you more points. Like this one is really hard to achieve. You need to have 4 similar coral types in those directions. So it could be 1 in one direction and 3 in another, or 2, you know, it's up to you how you fulfill that, but it is harder to achieve. So it's worth more points if you complete it, and it'll be worth 9 points at the end of the game. So there's a whole variety of these, and you're also trying to collect different types of sea life because you will get more points for that at the end of the game. So let's just go to end game scoring so you see what you will score for at the end of the game. So at the end of the game, you're going to get points for the ecosystem cards, which were those cards that were the public objectives that were laid out at the beginning of the game. So for example, this one says for every 2 same coral types, you will gain 3 points. So that is one type of scoring card. Another one is like this one. I'm not sure I even understand what this means. Yeah, I don't know what that one means. So I guess I can look it up. But we didn't have this one when we played, but there's a whole sheet on the back which explains what these mean. So this one means that you will earn 3 points for each completed sea life tile located within the 10 inner spaces of your ocean that do not touch the edge. Interesting. So you want to have sea life tiles placed in the inner spaces, not touching the edge of your board. And if you do that, then you will gain points for that. So you will gain 3 points for each tile that is in the center. So if you have 3 tiles, that would be 9 points for you. So there's a variety of these public objectives that you will be trying to meet, which are the ecosystem cards. So you will get points for that. Then you will score points for incomplete fish. So each incomplete fish earns 1 point for every adjacent completed coral tile. So incomplete fish basically means any fish that is on your board on a bubble that you did not place on top of a coral. So now as the game is approaching its end, you're going to want to try to maybe move your fish to bubbles that are next to multiple coral tiles so that you can score more points. So you're going to get points for the incomplete fish you have. Then you will get points for differing completed sea life tiles. So you'll earn 2 points for each different sea life tile you have completed. So again, you want the different types, and you can easily recognize the different types by the backs because they all have different sea life on the back of them, which is really nice. And then you'll get points for your tiles. So you're going to calculate the points for completed tiles and incomplete sea life tiles from the top row down. So completed tiles, very easy. You're just going to look at the points on the back and see how many points you get. And the same goes for the coral tiles. Those will indicate how many points you get right on the back of them. And then incomplete ones, for sea life, you're just going to score the smaller number depending on how much of that tile you were able to complete. Incomplete coral tiles do not provide any points, so only incompleted sea life tiles. And then I believe that is all the scoring. So you do not get any points in the end for any seashell tokens that you did not use that you had available to use. The game can get harder and harder as it gets along. Like I found towards the end of the game, I really needed more sea life seashell tiles because I really needed to move some fish around because the fish colors I needed were not coming up, and I just really needed to be able to flip something over. So it is just a very strategic, thinky game, and I absolutely loved it. Like, this is definitely a winner. Like, I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. Like, just a really great puzzle. So yeah, it does have that Cascadia element with the tiles and the fish laid out, and how you can spend a seashell token to, you know, take mismatched tiles and fish, but otherwise the puzzle itself on the board is not like Cascadia at all, and it is a very interesting, fun puzzle to solve with the placement of the fish on the bubbles and trying to complete multiple coral at once and complete the sea life tokens. Just a really, really fun, strategic, thinky game. Like, I cannot think of a negative to say about this game right now. Maybe with more plays I could, but right now I can't think of a negative, and I definitely want to play the solo mode of this and talk about that next time. So yeah, so that is Shallow Sea, which is hitting Kickstarter soon. And if you enjoy abstract strategy games and you enjoy tile placement games and pattern building games, then I think you will definitely enjoy this game. So check it out. So yeah, so that was Shallow Sea. So let's move on. Let's talk about Cat Packs. So Cat Packs is a 2024 game for 1 to 4 players, designed by Tobias Hall, and the art is done by Lisolette Eriksson, and is published by All or None Games. This is a game which I backed on Kickstarter, and I had it for a Spiel Essen pickup. So this is a really fun tile or card placement game. Just, you know, and there's drafting involved, and it's just a lot of fun with amazing artwork. Like, the artwork in this game just really almost makes the game, but the game itself is good too, but the artwork is just really, really fantastic. So I'm going to post up a picture, but I also backed all the playmats, so was able to play on the nice playmats. But this is a tile placement game, essentially, with cards, of course, and you're going to be trying to place these tiles, these cat cards, onto your board, and there is no restriction for you to have a certain grid by the end of the game. So it doesn't need to be like 3x3 cards or 4x4. Like, it can be some weird abnormal shape as long as you are placing cards adjacent to pre-existing cards. So obviously the first one just can go anywhere, and then after that you're just going to be placing cards next to pre-existing cards. However, you have borders that you need to match up when you place down these cards. So for example, if I had this card in my tableau, which is the Catricorn, so a cat unicorn, I guess, or no, it looks more like a goat, to be honest. But you see that there's an orange border here, and blue and orange. So I need to match it up with the matching border if I'm placing a cat next to it. You cannot place mismatched borders next to each other. Additionally, if you see one of these corners that has like a yellow corner to it, you want to try to complete those yellow corners, because those will give you points at the end of the game. So if you had 4 yellow corners together, that's going to give you a cat shine point at the end of the game. At the end of the game, your points are going to be very low. Like, this is a very low scoring game. Like, if you get a score of 10, that's considered good. And me and another player both scored 10, but he ended up winning in the end because he won with the tiebreaker. So basically, you're going to be drafting a card. So on your turn, there's going to be a row of cards in the alley. And at the beginning of the game, you're going to set aside a certain number of cards for each round. There are, I believe, 4 rounds in the game, if I remember correctly. And in each round, you're going to select 2 cards. So on your turn, you'll select 1 card, and then when it comes back to you, you'll select another card. So there are a total of 4 rounds, and you're going to end up having selected 12 cards by the end of the game. But you might have put down more than that, because you start the game with 5 cards in hand. You're also going to start the game with some catnip available to you. And catnip, excuse me, is necessary in order to play certain cards. Like, so for example, this card, I can't place it unless I pay 2 catnip. And this will give me 1 power, and I'll explain what power is a little bit later. And some cards will have an ability for you to do immediately, like this one, for example. If you place this card, you will immediately gain 2 catnips. Some of them will give you power, for example. So when you do your power struggle at the end of the round, this one is going to give you power times the number of mice cards that you have in your tableau. So certain cards will have mice on them. So for example, the pink cards have a little mouse icon. So you would multiply how many mice you have, and that would tell you how many cat power you have. So different cards will, give you different things. Some of them will give you a once per round ability at the start of the round where you might be able to collect something. There's cards which will even give you the ability to scare someone else, like a scaredy fright cat. Which will negatively impact someone else. And I cannot find a fright cat right now, but in our game that we played, I was the only one who used that on someone else. And then they would have to give up a cat power, or a catnip, or a card from their hand. So basically, again, there's going to be an alley with 5 cards face up, and on your turn, you'll take one of those cards. You do not need to pay for it when you're taking the card. You only need to pay for cards when you're placing them into your tableau, and you need to pay the catnip cost. And you can place as many cards as you're able to based on how much catnip you have. And then you're going to trigger any immediate abilities you have. After everyone has taken their 2 cards in their 2 turns for 1 round, then you're going to go to a power struggle. So a power struggle is when you're going to count up the paws that you have on your cards. So let me see. Yeah, here we go. So the player with the highest total power from their pack, including power tokens that they collected, wins a cat shine token. So you must have at least 1 power from a cat card in your pack to participate. So if all you have is cat power tokens, but no cat powers in your tableau visible, like so for example, this one, like this card, if you had it in your tableau, would provide you with 2 cat power. So if you don't have cards with cat power visible, then you cannot participate in this power struggle. So then you're going to see who has the most power in order to win the struggle. So you're going to see, okay, so it says if tied, all players win 1 cat shine token. The winners discard all power tokens needed to win. So for example, if a player needs to use 3 power tokens to have the most power, that player must discard all 3 power tokens. The winner or winners then place the gained cat shine token on top of a cat card with a power value in their pack to cover it. So you cannot build upon cat power that you have in your pack once you've already used it and won a cat shine token. If you had multiple cards in your tableau with cat power icons on them, you would just need to cover up one of them. So then you would have another cat card remaining with cat power on it, which you would be able to use. But you do have to cover the cat power, at least one of the cards that has that symbol with a cat shine token. So then it says from now on, that power value does not exist. If the covered power value is greater than 1, the player receives the difference in power tokens as compensation. Okay, well that's something we forgot or did not do in the game that I played, because I definitely covered powers more than 1, I think. Oh well, it was the first game. Things happen. You forget rules. So that is the power struggle. And then at the end of the round, after you resolve the power struggle, you're going to change the first player and do it all again. So again, there's different card effects. So I think I already discussed the instant and reoccurring ones. There's a multiplier. So you immediately gain the depicted resource multiplied by the number of the depicted cat type in your pack. So the one that I showed you earlier with the mouse, you would immediately gain those power tokens. Or for example, this one, if you had moon cards, you would immediately gain power tokens to your supply. There's a move action. So some cards have a move icon where it shows a card with 2 arrows, and that will let you immediately move and or rotate the number of cat cards in your pack to another legal place. So it'll tell you how many cat cards you can move. So for example, no, that's not one of them. That's I can't find one. There's just so many cards, but you'll see, you'll understand when you see it. The fright one looks like this. So the fright cat looks like that, and there's just so many cards, so I'm not going to go through all of them trying to find the exact card I need to show you guys, and there's like a whole bunch here. So the fright one, you choose an opponent, and that must the opponent must immediately discard either 1 catnip, 1 power token, or 1 cat card from their hand, never from their cat pack. And then cat shine. If you have a card that has this symbol on the bottom of it, you need to have cards adjacent to each side of that cat, and then that cat will score 1 cat shine during final scoring. So let's go to end of game scoring. So at the end of the game, you are going to get cat shine from points from any cat shine symbols that you formed by having 4 cat shine corners next to each other. So again, as we discussed, you would need 4 of those corners next to each other and you would get a point for that. And then cat cards with the cat shine effect surrounded by 4 other cat cards will score you 1 point. And then for every 10 total power you have in your pack, including power tokens, you will gain 1 point. If you are, and then there's like a friendly game which you can play, and instead that for the friendly game you would get it for every 5 total power you have. And then for each set of 5 different cat types you will gain a point, and then for each set of 5 cat cards of the same type you would gain a point. So like for example, these are of the same type because you can see from the mouse symbol that they are the same type and the color of the background, and these are of the same type. So there's, you know, a different number of there's different types of cats. So there's green, there's like yellow, there's blue, there's pink, and I think there's orange. So I think that there's a total of 5 different cat types. So yeah, and then whoever has the most points will win. So again, you are going to be scoring very low points in this game. In the game I played, me and another player scored 10 points, and then someone else scored 7. And then we had to go to the tiebreaker. And the tiebreaker was most cat cards in their pack. So I think he had 1 more cat card than I did. So then, and then if you need another tiebreaker, it's the greatest amount of power and so on, and then catnip and so on. So yeah, it's a fun little tile placement game with cool artwork and stuff. And one thing I did not show you is that these are things you can also acquire from cards. There's like a random, a wild border, which you can place next to a cat card you have. So if you acquired this from a cat card, you could place this next to a cat card so that it can be placed to a non-matching border, which is really nice. And then there's also those corners that you can acquire to complete the cat shine symbols if you need to. I did acquire 1 of those corners, but unfortunately it did not benefit me. I needed 1 more, and then I would have been able to complete an additional symbol. So that really sucked. But yeah, but towards the end of this game, I was really, really low on catnip, which was very problematic. So I had a few turns where I could not place any cats. However, from the cards in your hand, there are catnip symbols on the back. So you can actually discard a card and spend it as a catnip in order to place another card. But there was no cards in my hand that at one point that I could discard in order to do that. And yeah, so there was a point where I was struggling because I had spent all my catnip in order to do other things. so yeah, really fun game. I really enjoyed it. And again, the artwork and the different names of the different kinds of cats just really, really also like make this game so much more fun. Just absolutely adore the artwork. So yeah, and as you guys know, I mentioned in my last video that I'm backing the expansion to this game, which I think is called Scaredy Cat or something like that. It's like a Halloween expansion, which will make this game even more beloved in my collection once it has like a set of Halloween cards. So yeah, really, really looking forward to that expansion. And I did back the all-in when I backed this game, so I also got the art book because I'm absolutely obsessed with the cat artwork in this game. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then you should check it out. So that was cat packs. So let's move on. So like I mentioned in a recent video, I swear COVID is making me have like serious brain fog. I was just about to go into a whole explanation of Castle Combo, totally forgetting that I already talked about it last week. But since I have it here, I played 2 more games of Castle Combo last night, so I'll just post some pictures really quickly because I used the Cat Packs playmat as well. And yeah, it was just a really fun game. I played a 3-player game of it and then a 2-player game of it. And honestly, at 2 players, yeah, it might not be as fun, but it was still fun. Like, yeah, the cards might not like, you know, switch around as quickly because obviously you're drafting from 3 cards, but there's only 2 of you, so there's not going to be as much movement in the cards. But still, it was just a really fun game even at 2 players. So if you are someone who only plays games at 2 players, I think you would still enjoy this. So yeah, so I guess that's my little bit on Castle Combo for this video, since I totally forgot that I already discussed it in detail in last week's video. So yeah, so if you want more detailed explanation of it, then check out last week's video. So let's move on. Let's talk about Roaring Twenties. So this is a 2024 game for 3 to 5 players, designed by Leo Colovini, and the art is done by Annika Heller, and it's published by Deep Print Games. This is a game that I purchased at Essen. I really enjoy this game. So this is a bidding game, and I played one game of this while at Essen, and now I've played another game of this more recently, a 3-player game both times. So in a 3-player game, you are just going to move a couple of dinosaurs from the deck after completely shuffling it blindly. So you'll end up by, I believe, removing 3 dinosaurs from the deck after just shuffling it. So you will not know which 3 dinosaurs are removed, but you will see on each dinosaur card how many of that type there are in the game by looking at the little symbols on the side. So, and different dinosaurs are worth a different amount of points, and different dinosaurs want different types of food, which I will talk about in a minute. Some of them might want all different types of food. So I know that there are, like this one, for example, he will eat any type of food, but he's also worth a lower amount of points. He's only worth 1 point. So you're going to have cards in your hand, which you're going to be bidding with. These cards will have numbers on them, but the number is not really... Oh, actually, the number is relevant for both the food and the gems though. Okay, so for the gems, you'll see like this one is going to give you a value of 4 gems, whereas this one would give you 3 drinks. And then this one, the wild one, I was getting confused because I was looking at the wild one. So this will serve as one of any of those 3 types. So when there's a card up for auction, like for a dinosaur, for example, you can only bid, and this is one that everyone might want because it's 5 points at the end of the game, but he can only be bid on using either the skewers of meat or this dessert looking thing. It looks like some kind of meat pie, actually. I actually thought it was a cupcake, but then the other day my friend was like, that looks like meat. And then I took a closer look and I was like, oh, that does look like meat, ew. But I'm still gonna try to pretend it's a cupcake with icing on it instead. So he wants either the cupcake or the meat skewer. So you can only bid on him using those food items or gems. You can never bid on a dinosaur using a combination of food and gems. It has to be one or the other. So you're gonna go around and around, starting with the first player, placing your bids. So if someone says 2, they're not immediately going to show their hand and show you that they have 2 food items or 2 gems. So you're always going to keep your hand hidden when you are bidding. And you're just gonna go around and around bidding until someone wins. And if you choose to pass at any point in time, there are going to be some cards visible face up in the next to the dinosaur. So if you're playing a 3-player game, there's going to be 2 bidding cards face up, and you would have shuffled the whole deck, so you don't know what's coming up. And if you decide you no longer want to bid, you're going to take your mine card and place it on top of one of these cards to indicate that that card is going to come into your hand at the end of that round. So, you know, that is one benefit to not bidding and winning a dinosaur, because you might be able to get something that is worth a lot, like this 5 gem, for example. So sometimes you might not even want to bid to start with, and you might immediately use your mine card in order to grab one of these cards. You are going to start the game with, I believe, 5 bidding cards in hand, and your total to start the game has to be 10 or higher. If it's not, then you get to draw 5 new cards until you have a total of 10. So you would discard the ones you have and then get 5 new ones and hopefully have a total of 10 to start the game. So again, you're just going to go around and around secretly bidding, and then the winner will win after both players in a 3-player game have used their mine card to claim the 2 items in the center, and then the winner must show what they are spending in order to claim the dinosaur that they just won. So again, it has to be all gems or all food, and you do not get change. So if you ended up winning with a bid of 10, but you have 12 gems to turn in, you're not going to get 2 gems in return. So those 2 gems will go to waste. So you're trying to add more and more dinosaurs to your tableau. However, you want to create sequences, and you also want to get pairs and triplets. So let's just go to game end scoring, because that's really what you need to know about which dinosaurs you want to try to bid on. And there are really good player aids as well. So the player aids will tell you what the different dinosaur values are and what you can use to bid on them. So that's really nice, and it'll tell you how many of each dinosaur there is as well, I believe. No, it doesn't tell you how many of each one there is. Oh, actually it does. Yes, it does. So it also tells you how many of each there is. So it tells you how many of each there is, how many points it's worth, and what you need to bid on that dinosaur. And then on the back, it explains the final end game scoring, which is really helpful. So you'll always have this player aid with you in order to see what you need. So before final scoring begins, now this is why you might want to have had pairs or triplets in your dinosaur tableau, because before final scoring begins, you will take your mine card and optionally turn it over into a joker and remove a card for which you have doubles or triplets of. You can only remove a card if you have more than one of that card. So if you have 2 6s, for example, which are worth 1 point each, you can remove a 6 and replace it with your joker, and now this joker can be used anywhere in your sequence to help create a longer sequence. So a sequence is cards in order that are consecutive. So like, for example, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you can't skip a number if you want to score a high sequence. And the longer your sequence, the more points you will score at the end. So first, you have the ability to discard a card if you have more than one card of a certain number, and then you can swap your joker in and use your joker anywhere in a sequence. Then you will score. So you will score for all the stars and all of your dino cards. Then for pairs and triplets, you will score 3 points for each pair and 6 points for triplets. Jokers cannot be used for that. Then you will score for sequences. So if you have a sequence of 3 cards, you would get 3 points. 4 cards, 6 points. 5 cards, 10 points. 6 cards, 15 points. 7 cards, 21 points. 8 cards, 28 points. 9 cards, 36 points. And 10 cards, 45 points. I honestly cannot imagine anyone getting more than like 6, maybe 7 if they're really good. That's just crazy. And then hand cards. So for every card you have left over, for every 2 cards you have left over, you will gain 1 point, and then whoever has the most points will win. So in my game, the most recent one I played, there was a tie. So in that case, you compare your hand size, and the player with the highest total value wins. So yeah. So it's a really fun bidding game, and the artwork is just so delightful, like the roaring 20s, like dinosaurs dressed up for the like 1920s. I just really, really love it. Yeah, and it was just 10 euros. So I think it's a really good buy for just 10 euros. So if you like bidding auction games and you just want a quick filler game that's a lot of fun, highly recommend this game. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but you're going to play until your dino deck that you have runs out. But again, depending on player count, you might have had to remove a certain number of cards, and you're not going to know which cards were removed. So it is going to add an element of mystery or just not knowing to this game, which is good. So yeah, so you cannot count cards. So I imagine that maybe in a 5-player game you would probably have to remove some too, because otherwise you would be able to count cards. Let me just actually check that, because yeah, I don't know if you'd want to play a game where you can count cards. Let's see, where does it say how many cards you remove? Where is setup? Okay, here we go. Yeah, 1 card with 5 players. So yeah, so you cannot count cards. So in a 5-player game, you are going to shuffle the cards and then remove 1 card. So yeah, so if you're looking for a really fun bidding game that would make a really great filler game, highly recommend Roaring 20s. I really enjoy this game. So yeah, so that was Roaring 20s. So let's move on. Let's talk about Cat in the Tower. So this is a 2024 game for 1 to 5 players, designed by Masakazu Takizawa, and the art is done by Namiki, and it's published by ArcLight Games. This is a game that I purchased at Spiel Essen. So the rules were given out in English, but the box, as you can see, is in Japanese, I believe. I believe this is Japanese. So I played a game of this at Essen, and I have not played it since then. So my memory might be not the greatest, but basically I haven't even like opened a lot of the components yet, but you're going to have these different kinds of cards, for example. So these are the different levels actually. So you're going to start with level 1 on the bottom. So you're going to start with this level 1 card, and you're going to be building up this tower. So for example, here's level 2, and it looks like these can punch out. So you need to punch these out in order to put on the levels. So you're not going to have like a solid level. They're all going to have a hole in the center. So you need to do that, except for the bottom one, of course. And you're going to start the game with a cat on the bottommost level. And then there's different types of cats that you're also going to be adding to your tower as the game progresses. So this is the cat who starts on the bottom of the tower, and along the way, he might have friends that you'll need to place on the tower. So there are, I believe, 4 of each different type of cat. So there's like 4 purple cats, and they're all different shapes, and the shapes, you know, can matter actually. So some are small, some are big, some are tall. So yeah, so different kinds of cat shapes, and some are long. So I think we've covered all the different types of cat shapes. And then you're going to have these cards. So you're going to have these various building cards. Let me find them. And you're going to need to like actually bend them along the crease that you see here in order to create the structures that you're going to be selecting and putting onto your cat tower to build up this cat tower. So there's a variety of different structures that you're going to be using in order to build up your cat tower. And how you decide which one you're using is dependent on what's on offer during your turn. So there's different cat cards. I don't have scissors with me, but there's cards that will determine what action you can take. So for example, this one, since I don't have scissors right now, but there's different action cards. So based on the action card, you're going to pick an action card and then do the action of the card that you chose. So some cards might allow you to build a new floor at the top of the tower, and it'll tell you what you need to use in order to build that floor. So for example, this one says you have to build a floor using a small window tile, big window tile, and the next floor tile, or place 1 feline friend of any color on a floor of your choice on the tower. So you're either going to build a new floor or place 1 feline friend of any color on a floor of your choice. There's going to be different cards. Some of the cards will have you pet a feline friend of any color on the floor of your choice. So for example, that's a petting card. So you're going to need to gently pet the cat without, knocking over the tower. So there's just a bunch of different cards that will have you doing different kinds of things. I recall that there was one where you needed to I think there's a certain point where you need to move up your feline friends and stuff like that. So there's cards that are going to tell you that you need to raise one cat from, one place to another, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah. But anyway, so that's really the gist of the game. You're going to try to do this and reach as high as you can without knocking the tower over. However, if you do knock it over, the game is not over. So let me find where the rule is about knocking over the tower. Yeah, debris. So debris. Anytime a game component falls from where it was placed and ends movement on the table or whatever surface the game is being played on, you definitely want to play this on a flat surface, by the way, it is considered to be debris. If the fallen component is still touching a floor tile, be it the first floor tile or any other floor tile, even slightly, it is not considered to have fallen from the tower. So dealing with debris. So if you have debris, if any component you are trying to place on your turn falls off from the tower during your turn, it is not considered to be debris, and you can continue to try to place it without penalty. Wall tile. If a wall that was placed before your current turn falls off the tower as debris, place it off to the side and in view so it is easy to confirm how many have fallen thus far. Floor tile or feline friend. If a floor tile or feline friend falls from the tower as debris, return them to the stock of unplaced components to the side. Toto. If Toto falls off the tower, who is the cat you are trying to reach, get to the top of the tower, the current player must place him back on the floor he was on before their turn started. If the floor Toto was on itself has also fallen, return him to the closest floor as his original position as possible. So ending the game. The game ends when either condition A or B are fulfilled. So victory. Once Toto has been placed on the 10th floor or higher, all players count out for 5 seconds. If the tower still stands, having not collapsed with Toto in place even after 5 seconds have passed, all players are considered to have cleared the game with a victory. Nice. defeat. The tower collapses. The tower is considered to have collapsed when 5 or more wall tiles have fallen off from the tower as debris. With the tower destroyed beyond repair, the game ends with all players in defeat. So the game really ends when Tota reaches the top, the 10th floor, or you have such a catastrophic fall where most of your tower has fallen that you cannot continue any longer. So yeah, so if you enjoy like dexterity games or building games, then this is a game you might enjoy. And be mindful that the floors, the building components you're placing are not always the same height, which makes it really hard as the game is progressing. Like you might have one wall which is shorter than another wall, so your floor is going to be tilted. And that makes the game harder and harder as you're progressing. And again, as I showed you, the center of these is knocked out, so you really have very limited space to place those walls and cats on. So it definitely gets harder and harder. There is a very challenging mode. They said if you reach level 20 or something, like you can consider yourself like the ultimate victor or something like that. I remember hearing something about that, but I'm like, who the heck can reach level 20? Like that would just be impossible. Like if anyone has reached 20, I would really love to know. Yeah. Just impossible. Yeah, don't know how anyone could get to 20. But yeah, but that's Cat in the Tower basically. So if you are looking for a fun building game, then maybe you should check this out. I do want to try this solo because I think when we played it at Asen, I just feel like, you know, with people not being as close as possible to the tower, I feel like it might be a little bit more difficult to place things. So I think I want to try this solo and see how high up I can get. And that's really why I purchased this, actually, to be honest. I really just purchased it for solo play to see how high of a tower I can make myself. And just because the cats are super cute, and I like the idea of a cat trying to reach heaven so that he can be reunited with his friend who passed away. So I believe that's the story behind this game, that Toto has lost his owner. The owner died, I think, and he just wants to be reunited with his owner. And so he is trying to get on top of this tower to reach heaven, to be reunited with his owner. So as someone who lost her soul cat, Dobby, you know, that really, the theme of this just really, really appeals to me as well. And I hope that I will be reunited with my soul cat one day too. So yeah, so that is Cat in the Tower. So let's move on. Let's talk about Mycology. So Mycology is a 2024 game for 2 to 6 players designed by James Scott, and the art is done by Greg May, and it's published by Bioprospectus Games. So this is a game that I backed on Kickstarter, and I backed the like all-in edition with the deluxe components and everything. And unfortunately, I do consider this to be a Kickstarter regret of mine. So I played this now maybe a month ago, so it's been a really long time since I've played it. So I'm gonna be trying to remember as much as I can, but the rules are super duper short, like very, very short rules. In fact, the Book of Mushrooms is way thicker than the rule book. And if you are a huge fan of mushrooms, you might like this game because it actually tells you about all the different kinds of mushrooms that appear in this game, including whether or not they're edible, and just so much information about mushrooms. So this booklet is really nice. Unfortunately, the game, I found it way too simple for me and just not fun at all, just because it was just so simple and just, yeah, I just did not find myself enjoying it. But basically, there's going to be some face-up cards, and you're going to be drafting cards and adding them below your board into your like little mushroom baskets. And you're going to have like resources that you will be collecting throughout the game and spending. So on your turn, you have 2 actions. So you can either, let's see what you can do. So on your turn, you can harvest a mushroom card, which means pay the cost in ecology resources, then collect the number of indicated feast tokens and place the mushroom card face up in your basket in the corresponding season. So there is a small season board that's going to have an indicator on it to tell you which season you're in. So you can only take a mushroom card by paying the cost if you are in the corresponding season for that card. So for example, this one is either fall or summer. I believe that those are what those colors indicate for seasons. So different colors will indicate different seasons, and you can only take a mushroom card if the season is in the correct season. What else? So you will take that card and then play it into your basket, and yeah. And your board also indicates the different seasons. So like, for example, winter cards can be played here, spring cards here, summer cards here, and autumn cards here. So each season has its own column as well. And if your mushroom corresponds to 2 different seasons, you can decide which season you place it in. So that's an action that you can do. So, or you can make a trade. So you can trade in a certain number of resources for something else. So you can turn in like some food for any one resource. You can turn in a food in order to advance to the next season. You can turn in a food token to replace any 4 cards in the mushroom field. You can turn in 2 food tokens to exchange a mushroom card with another player. Or you can exchange 3 resources for 1, or any 3 resources for a food token. So those are the actions available to you. So when you take your turn, you will do 2 actions. You can either harvest a mushroom, as we discussed, or do any one of those trades that we just talked about. When you play mushroom cards into your baskets, you will gain different items. So you will gain the different depicted items here. So for example, this would give you a food token. The cost of placing the mushroom is in the bottom right-hand side. So there's different kinds of resources and different kinds of costs. There are some mushrooms, let me see if I can find one, that have poison tokens on them. So for example, this one. So if you collect a poison token, that is not a good thing. They will be worth negative points at the end of the game. So poison mushroom cards have a great background. Next to the poison token symbol is an ecology resource symbol. Whenever this ecology resource is collected by the player with the poison mushroom, they also collect a poison token, which is worth -2 at the end of the game. So if you end up with a card that has a poison icon on it, anytime that resource is being collected by all the players, you're also going to get a poison token. So that's not good. And you're going to be collecting resources when it's depending on the season or something like that. I can't remember how that works. I believe at the beginning of a turn or whenever the season marker moves, I believe you collect a new resource, if I remember correctly. Oh yes, if a 7 is rolled, advance the season token to the next season. For all other rolls, all players collect 1 ecology resource according to the number rolled. So that's right. So depending on the number rolled, you're going to collect the matching resource. And then again, if a 7 is rolled, that means you just advance to the next season. So yeah, so you need the different resources again in order to play the different mushroom cards below your board. So game end trigger. So the game end triggers when the game ends when the first player completely fills their basket with 10 mushrooms. 1 in winter, 2 in spring, 3 in summer, and 4 in fall. Or then players tally the points of each mushroom card in their basket. Point value is in the upper left corner of the card. 1 additional point is given for each feast token and 2 points for each magic mushroom token in a player's possession at the end of the game. 2 points are deducted for each poison token, and then whoever has the most points wins. So yeah, so that is the game, and unfortunately I just found it to be really boring. Like I backed this during the whole mushroom craze when there was a whole bunch of mushroom games on Kickstarter, and yeah, and I kind of wish I didn't. I spent a lot of money on this game because I got the one with the deluxe components, and yeah, so unfortunately just not a game that I want to keep in my collection just because I felt it was way too simple. Like I just was not enjoying it at all. We played, I believe, a 5-player game of this or a 4-player game of this, and even though I was the one who brought it to game night, I kept on like wanting it to end, and I kept on suggesting to the other players like, oh, maybe we should shorten the game, maybe we should play until this happens or until this happens. Like I kept on suggesting that we end the game earlier than it was supposed to go, and my friend was like, nope, you brought this and we're gonna play it to its end. so yeah, so we did play it to its end, but this is not gonna stay in my collection. I'm definitely culling this. Unfortunately, I don't know if I want to give it away because I spent so much money on it, so I want to see if I can sell it to someone who maybe really, really loves mushrooms. So yeah, so I'll mention this in my culling section of this video, and if you want to purchase this game from me, you are more than welcome to purchase it. So yeah, so I definitely want to cull this game. So yeah, so that was Mycology. So let's move on. Actually, since Tend is launching soon, I should mention that I played a solo game of Tend, and I actually scored 1 point less than I did in the multiplayer game. And apparently, the more you play, the better you're supposed to get at this game, but I guess not for me. And I tried to diversify this time when I played a solo game of Tend, and a solo game plays very similarly to a multiplayer game. I mean, obviously, the only differences is with the neighbor cards. There's like a little bit of a difference with the neighbor cards, but otherwise, pretty much the same. And yeah, and I still did not do very well. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong. One thing I did notice was that I did select a scratch off card from like towards the bottom of the pile because I had never shuffled the stack of scratch off cards. And I, scratched off the same boxes to see if it was going to be, if it would be different from the previous scratch off cards, and it looked the same. So I'm really curious to know whether every single scratch off card is the same, because in that case you can like literally just scratch off an entire scratch off card, see what's where, and then determine which boxes to scratch in future games based on that. So that I'm not so sure about. I know that they've already released the app that is the scratch off app, and I wonder if there's more variety with the app than there is with the cards. So that's a question I would really like to ask them about the scratch off cards. But otherwise, yeah, it was a lot of fun still. As a solo game, of course, even in a multiplayer game, there's not like a whole lot of interaction, right? The only interaction is with the neighbor cards. So really that's all you're kind of missing in a solo game. But yeah, so I did play a solo game of this, and I did have the playmat. I thought I did not have the playmat, and when I went to recycle the box, good thing I looked inside of it one more time because the playmat was in there. And I don't know how I missed that. So I played a solo game, and that is hitting Kickstarter, I believe, on Tuesday, and stay tuned for my overview video for that. So yeah, so that was 10. So yeah, so let's move on. So I know that there's still a ton of games that I need to discuss that I've played over the last month or so, but I don't want this video to be like 4 hours long, so I'll try to save some of those again for next week. So let's move on to games that I am backing or have received. So games that I'm backing, pretty much all the same ones that I mentioned in the last video. So I'm backing a couple at their pledge manager level in order to receive my production copy. So that would be like Mutagen, it would be like Ultimate Voyage and Cat Sudoku Summer Festival. And then I'm backing a couple others. So someone mentioned in the comments a Christmas game, and it looked really good to me. So I am backing that now. It's called Tomten, the Tactical Game of Christmas Gnomes. So it's like $29, and it's completely ready to be shipped out already, apparently. And it's got 18 days to go, but it has not reached its funding goal. So we still need like $800 more to reach our funding goal. I'm saying our as though it's my campaign. But the artwork just looks really nice. It looks like a very vintagey, like kind of like Nordic artwork. I think that Tomten is like a Swedish thing, if I remember correctly from the comment on last week's video. But it just looks really delightful. It doesn't look like any kind of like a complex game or anything, but it looks like a really nice game that even my family would be able to play during Christmas time. Like, it doesn't seem like too complex, so I might be able to teach it to them and have them actually understand the rules. So I'm backing Tomten, and I really hope it funds just because it looks really, really nice. I just really, really adore the artwork. So that is a game I'm backing. So thank you to the viewer who suggested that to me. What else am I backing? So I mentioned the Wicked Christmas game, but now that I'm backing Tomten, I'm like, should I cancel Wicked Christmas? Because Wicked Christmas is $40. I don't know. I mean, I like the artwork of that game as well, but Tomten just seems like a nicer game. I don't know, so I don't know what to do. So maybe I might cancel Wicked Christmas. I have until Halloween to decide whether or not to keep my pledge for that. And then, of course, I mentioned Cat Packs Whiskers in the Night. And then I'm backing a game from a publisher that I do not like, but unfortunately, I just really want this game. So I'm backing Mad Kala from Druid City Games. I do not like the owner of Druid City Games. I think he's, a jerk. So I really didn't want to support his company, but it's really hard for me to resist an Alice in Wonderland themed game. And this is like a Mycology style game, and I really love the Mycology mechanic. So I am backing this game as well. So let's move on. So those are the games that I'm backing. So let's go on to some of the stuff that I have received recently. Actually, I have the stack right over here. So actually I'll show this first since we talked about a mushroom game recently. So I had backed Mycelia and I received my copy of Mycelia that I had backed. So that was the slipcase, and then this is the cover. So just want to point out that when I backed it, I backed it from the publisher Split Stone Games, but unfortunately they are using like Kids Table Board Gaming for their distribution, and you guys know my history with Kids Table Board Gaming and Burnt Island Games. so not too thrilled about that, but I did support and back this game with the original publisher, not their new like distributor or partner or whatever. So it came with some artwork, mushroom artwork, which is nice. The box is super nice. The insert is really, really just wonderful. It's got like this kind of like felt texture to it, like really great insert. So there are these like player aids in the center. There are some bug tokens, just a bunch of different mushroom cards and so on in the center. And then each player, it looks like, I don't know if these go along with each player, but I think, yeah, I think they're players. Because each player has their own color and they have like these different tiles, and then each player has a bag of their like own stuff, I think. So yeah, each player has like a bag of like different kinds of tokens. There's like mushrooms in here. Oh, actually the screen printed side is that side. There's like cubes and other things it looks like in there. So each person has a bag, and then each person has a token in their color. So the colors are red, orange, white, and blue. So I don't know if I've ever seen a blue mushroom. Have you guys ever seen a blue mushroom? I don't know. But those are the player colors. And then there's a bunch of different tiles in different colors. So there's like orange, green, red, and brown, it looks like. So yeah, but again, very nice insert. I really love this insert. I'm like, they did the insert right. So that is really nice, because when a game company just has a really crappy insert that you end up throwing away, it seems like such a waste. But yeah, so this is an insert that I do not need to throw away. And the inside of the box is really cool as well with all of those mushrooms. So this got really good reviews. So I'm hoping that this is a keeper, because Mycology for me was a disappointment. And I feel really bad saying that, because like when someone's, you know, has spent so much time designing a game and has put their heart and soul into it, like I'm doing with my elephant game and some other games that I'm designing, you know, it must be really hard to hear negative reviews of your game. So I do feel really bad, but you know, it is what it is. Okay. So that was one game I received. I did receive my production copy of Explorers of Navoria, finally. I also have the giant playmat, which I'm not going to show you because it is humongous. So this is my production copy, which I received for covering the game on Kickstarter. And so many people had received their games before me. And I was the #1 backer for this Kickstarter at the pledge manager level, but still backer #1. So Aiden, the owner of the company, joked first to back, last to receive, because I was telling him in the group chat like, hey, I still haven't gotten a shipping notification, and like the whole world has seen, you know, has gotten their game, but I haven't. But anyway, so I'm not gonna open everything right now, because to be quite honest, like I had to look at this game a lot while at Essen, so I need a little bit of a break from it now, just because I explained this game so much while at Essen and had to look at it all the time while selling it to people. So just want to take a little bit of a break before I actually end up playing it. But the expansion, you know, looks really cool. The cards, the custom sleeves, really awesome. And again, the expansion and the deluxe wooden components. So the base game comes with wooden components for everything except for the resources. So these wooden components replace the cardboard resources. And then the expansion includes a 5th player as well as a solo mode and extra contract cards to complete. So I actually would really like to play this with the expansion at some point, because I really, really enjoy this game. And this is one of those games that while I had it in my possession, I think I played it total, like the prototype, like pre-production copy, I think I played like 3 times. So yeah, so really looking forward to playing this again someday. Another review copy I received recently is Stamp Swap, which I'm really looking forward to playing. Like the stamps in this game are just really, really awesome. So this is from Stonemaier Games, and this is designed by Paul Solomon, and the art is done by Connor Gillette. And Paul Solomon is the designer of Honey Buzz, which is a game I absolutely love. Oh, and I really need to play my Fall Flavors expansion this fall. Like, perfect timing. Like I really need to play that. Yeah. So this has a nice little insert for all of the different stamps and some of these tokens. And then the box is pretty much like there's just so much empty space. So I stuck all of the player components in a tiny little container like this. So all of the player components are in that. And then the cards I just stuck in bags, and then these tokens I stuck in a bag. But I'll just show you the player board. So player board and the main board. So player board looks like this. I'm guessing the back side is a solo side, but I honestly don't know. So I haven't played this yet. And then the main board, look at the back. Like, I just love that. Oh, that is so nice. But here is the front that you'll be using. But I just want to show you some of the stamps because some of the stamps are just so freaking pretty. Like there are these like spectral stamps that have like gold foiling on them, which are just absolutely gorgeous. So let me just see if I can find some of those. I know that I stuck them in here. Oh yeah, here's an example. Like, look at that. Like, these are like special stamps that you'll be trying to get. So there's only a couple of each of the special stamps in each of the different shapes. But I'll show you. Oh, there's some like cute little animals. Like I recall seeing an elephant somewhere. I don't know where the elephant is now. Let me see if I can find him. There's a turtle. Oh, here's the elephant. Yes. Love it, love it, love it, love it. So really looking forward to playing this just because I really, really love the look of this game. And yeah, and Paul Solomon, I have tended to enjoy his games. Like another game of his that I had played recently, which I discussed on this channel, was that biology game. God, what was it called? Sorry, I just have a bunch of games stacked on the floor and I'm trying to see if I can find it. It was that one Mendelian genetics game. I don't remember what it was called. Something about Mendelian genetics. So yeah, so that one of the designers of that game was Paul Solomon. Are these, I know I have other arrivals, but I just cannot remember what else I received recently. Let me see if I have a list I can read off of. Because, oh wait, there was one other tiny game. Here's one tiny game I need to show. So this game is designed by a friend of mine. So a friend of mine, Aaron, designed this game. Let me see. He simply on the box has Aaron H, so I won't reveal his last name since I guess he doesn't want his last name revealed. But he designed this game, which is published by Stillfleet. So Stillfleet is a publisher of role-playing books, and they had a really successful Kickstarter, and they've been going to conventions selling their role-playing universe, whatever it is. You know, this universe, it's like some kind of space thing, and the artwork just looks really cool. I'm of course not into role-playing games, so I can't really tell you too much more about Stillfleet, but they published a small card game of his that he designed, my friend designed. So yeah, so that is very, very cool. So I would like to give this game a try, maybe at FlagCon. If he's at FlagCon, who knows, maybe we can even play it together, who knows. So yeah, so that arrived recently. Let's see what else I have. I honestly don't remember now. I think I've told you guys last time that I received Unconscious Mind, but that's humongous, so I'm not going to show that to you. I also received Tang Garden Seasons in the big box, and honestly, just looking at the box is kind of like, it makes me anxious. It's just so huge, and I'm like, oh god, this is another Everdell situation where I have this giant box, and the game's probably not going to get played because the box is so freaking huge. I'm just not going to want to bring it out. So kind of regretting getting the big box. Like that was probably a Kickstarter regret of mine now too. Yeah, so I need to stop doing that. I need to stop getting like these big giant boxes because then the game just doesn't get played. So yeah, so I haven't even unboxed it. Like I took it out from the brown box and the packaging, but I haven't like sorted it out. I haven't even touched it beyond that just because it's, you know, it just overwhelms me. So yeah, so that was a mistake probably. So I really need to get better about what I back and what I buy. Okay, so let's move on from this. Okay, let's move on to games that I am culling, and I do want to mention that the last two winners still have not received their games because they were waiting for me to create a list of other games that I might want to sell to add on to the game that they have won and maybe save on shipping and stuff. So I still need to ship out the games that the previous two winners won, which was the Butterfly game, Mary Posas for the first winner, and then the second winner won Color Fields. So yeah, so I haven't forgotten about you guys, and I'm sorry, I need to email you guys and just maybe come up with a list for you guys and see if there's anything you're interested in buying, and then I'll ship out your games, you know, and we'll figure that out. So I haven't forgotten about you guys. But again, if you win a game from me and you don't want to buy anything from me, you're just welcome to pay for the shipping for the game you want, and I'll send it out immediately then. Then you don't have to wait for me, who, you know, I'm someone who takes forever to get around to doing things, which is, I guess, you know, not a great thing. So I'm trying to get better about it. So this week's giveaway is going to be for Rebel Princess. So if you guys watched last week's video, you know that I had gone ahead and purchased the deluxe edition of this game, even though I purchased this one at Essen. So this is from the original publisher, Zombie Paella. So this is the standard edition of the game, and it has been played once. So these cards have been used one time, and the score pad has been used once, but there are a number of sheets, so you can just, you know, laminate a couple sheets if you want to. So this is the standard edition, where all of the cards are the same standard card size. I do not know if this box will hold sleeved cards. I am guessing it will not. That's a problem I have with the deluxe edition as well. And if you guys watched my video from last week, you might remember that the cards in this game, the round cards, I believe they only go up to letter T. So there might be a fewer amount of them than in the deluxe edition, because in the deluxe edition, they go up to Z. So from what I can see, these cards go up to the letter T. And those are just round cards that will give you some kind of a new rule for the round that you are playing. So yeah, I don't see letters beyond oh no, actually never mind. Here's U. So U comes after T, right? T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. So maybe it goes up to U. I don't see X, Y, and Z. So yeah, I think it goes up to U. So yeah, and then I believe it still has 10 princesses. So let me count out the princesses for you guys, so you can decide if this is a game you want to win or not. And since this is from the original publisher, there are also some foreign language cards in here as well. I believe it's Spanish. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 princesses. And I think in the deluxe edition there are 12, or maybe there's 10 as well. I cannot remember. But it does not seem like there's a huge difference between this and the deluxe edition. So if you would like to win this game and simply pay for shipping for this game, you don't have to pay for the cost of this game, just shipping, then leave a comment below telling me who your favorite princess is from any fairy tale that you have read in your life. So tell me who your favorite princess is. And some of the princesses in this game, just to give you some ideas, are like the Little Mermaid, Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, Scheherazade, which I love that they have Scheherazade in here from 1001 Arabian Nights. Like, that makes me happy. There is the Ice Princess. That was pretty cool. Yeah, Pocahontas. There's the Pea Princess. Did I mention Sleeping Beauty? Oh, and there's Alice. Like, Alice is in here from Alice in Wonderland. There's Mulan. So yeah, so tell me who your favorite princess is and why in the comments below. And I will give you until Friday night to put your answer below in the comments, and then I'll pick a winner, and that way I can announce the winner in next week's video. So that's why I'll say Friday night. And again, if you haven't watched my giveaway rules before, you need to be someone who has commented on a video previously. If you have not, then you are not eligible to win. So if you want to start being eligible to win giveaways on this channel, you need to start commenting on my videos, and of course be subscribed to my channel, which is a requirement. So again, if you want a chance to win Rebel Princess, then leave a comment below by Friday, end of Friday, telling me who your favorite princess is and why. And in this culling section, I will also be selling some games. So I want to sell my edition, my game of Planet Unknown. So Planet Unknown I have owned for a couple years now, and it has sat there unplayed. It's fully unboxed, but I've never played with my copy. I have played this game like 3 or 4 times, but always with someone else's copy. So I'm like, why am I hanging on to this game? And it takes up so much space. It's a pretty big game. So if anyone wants to purchase Planet Unknown from me, get in touch with me via email, and maybe we can work out a good price that we would both be happy with. And of course, shipping would need to be paid for as well. So that's one game I want to sell. Another game I want to sell is, of course, Mycology, which I already mentioned. So if you're interested in purchasing this, reach out to me. You can just email me, boardgamesinAminute@gmail.com. And another game I want to sell is my copy of Brew, because that is a game I purchased, was not a review copy. So if you're interested in purchasing Brew from Pandasaurus Games, get in touch with me and maybe we can reach a price that we would be happy with. So those are the 3 games right now that I know I want to sell, and I will definitely be adding more to this list because things are out of control and I need to get rid of a lot of games. So that is the culling section for this week. So let's move on. Okay, we can finally move into updates. FlagCon is like literally, what, just 2 weeks away now? Like, insane. Yeah, 2 weeks away, you guys, just 2 weeks away. So FlagCon is the weekend of November 8th. Yeah, super exciting. So yeah, if you haven't purchased tickets, we're almost all sold out of tickets. So if you want to come to FlagCon, you need to buy them ASAP. And like I said, it's going to be amazing, so you don't want to miss out. So get your tickets if you haven't done so already. I don't have any cats update, so I will move on from that to something else. So before we get into the book clubs, I thought I would talk about hate mail and hate comments for a bit. I feel like I should not be giving these people any attention in my videos, but there were a couple of things that were said that maybe need to be addressed. So I received, so on Twitter, so I have a Twitter profile, which I use for a wide variety of things, right? Like, yeah, occasionally I post videos on there and post links to my content, but primarily it's become a place for me to just talk about my personal life or vent. Yes, it's been a multi-use platform for me, but it is not my main platform. Like I've considered YouTube to be my main platform for a long time now. YouTube is where like my board game content is, where you can find all of my videos and so on. Twitter is just a mishmash of personal life, politics, and board game stuff. And then Instagram, my main page on Instagram, like when you scroll, is all board game content. And then in my stories, I might share personal things or news about Palestine. And then Facebook is just all board game and board game related. And I have not done a very good job of keeping my Facebook updated, to be honest. Like I need to really get on top of posting my links and stuff on Facebook. But anyway, so I always upload my overview videos on Facebook, but I need to do a better job of uploading my video links for the weekly playback and stuff. But recently someone on Twitter just started trolling me like crazy. So this person, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I am very opposed to Kamala Harris, and I've really been trying to encourage people to consider voting for Jill Stein, which is what I'm doing. And a vote for Jill Stein is not a vote for Trump. Like a vote for Jill Stein is literally a vote for Jill Stein. Like I literally want Jill Stein to win. I'm not voting for her just to take away a vote from Kamala and give it to Trump. Like my vote is like literally for Jill Stein. Like I want to see her as president. But this person was just trolling me and just telling me, saying that I've made really bad life decisions, and what did he say? He said I make really bad life decisions, and he said something else. I think he used the word shit or something at some point to describe me on Twitter. I can't remember exactly what he said now, but anyway. So I told him, okay, what are these poor life decisions that you think I've done and made? And, what is this behavior that you think I've engaged in which is wrong? So then he sends me this long email. And by the way, this person is anonymous. So this is someone who is posting anonymously on Twitter. And when they emailed me from, which looks like a pretty anonymous email address. And I feel like I should almost just post it here because this person is just a complete troll. But they're going by the name of Jimmy Jones in their email. And it's an Outlook email address. Anyway, so in their email, they start by saying, honestly, I'm not sure if you are purposely trolling on Twitter or you are being sincere, but if you are being sincere, then I don't want to post this publicly and I'm trying not to be mean. But then they go on to say a whole bunch of bullshit. So no, I'm not trolling on Twitter. Like when I make posts about Palestine, like how on earth can that be seen as trolling? Like my identity is there on Twitter. Like people see that this is a real person who has been posting on Twitter for many, many years. It's me. I'm not hiding behind any fake name. I'm not hiding behind some cartoon avatar like this person was on Twitter. So don't even know who this person is, to be honest, but someone from the board game industry. But I'm not trolling when I post about Palestine or the elections on Twitter. Like, I am venting, I'm voicing my frustrations about everything that is going on in this world, including the genocide, including the elections, on Twitter. So then he says, that I'm a troll when I say I call out hypocrisy in this industry. No, I'm not a troll. Like, I'm literally just doing what I feel like people in this industry don't do. Like, there are a lot of hypocrites in this industry and people with double standards. And actually, I'll point out one that I saw recently, like one huge double standard from a publisher, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So he says, you have a very anti-Jewish, pro-Muslim agenda, while a ton of Jews have the complete opposite. No. So I don't have an anti-Jewish agenda, and I want to address this because I know I am very anti-Israel, but anti-Israel is not the same thing as being anti-Jewish. I don't know how else to explain this to people. Like, a state and its people are not the same thing. The state of Iran is not the same thing as the people of Iran. The state of Israel is not the same thing as the people of Israel. The state of the United States of America is not the same thing as the people of the United States of America. Not all people within a state believe in the policies of their government. It's just the way it is. So when I am talking against Israel, I'm not speaking against Jewish people, and not all Jews are Zionists, and not all Zionists are Jews. There are so many anti-Zionist Jewish people who I follow on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and elsewhere. Like, if I have an anti-Jewish agenda, then so do they. Like, because we're saying the same exact things about Israel. So do these Jewish people also have an anti-Jewish agenda then? Like, and my best friend is Jewish, so a friend from law school. So, and I've, spent multiple nights even at her parents' house, even without her there. Like, that's how close I am with this family. If I had an anti-Jewish agenda, that would not be the case. Like, I would not be going around making Jewish friends if I had an anti-Jewish agenda. Zionism and Judaism are not the same thing. And if you believe they are, then you are just uneducated. There's no ifs or buts about it. If you think Zionism and Judaism are the same thing, then you are uneducated. Okay, so no, I don't have an anti-Jewish agenda, and I don't have a pro-Muslim agenda. So here is a huge double standard in this industry. Anytime a Muslim posts about what's happening to Muslims in their countries, or what's happening to Muslims in America, the Islamophobia that we have to face, all of a sudden I have a pro-Muslim agenda. I am not trying to get Sharia law passed in America. I don't believe in living in a state with Sharia law. Like, hello, I'm not even wearing hijab right now. Like, again, completely uneducated. Like, I don't know what to do when, this industry is full of these uneducated morons. Like, what can you do? Like, I can only try to educate you so much, and if you don't want to open your eyes to the truth, then that's on you. Like, I've done my best to educate people in my videos, and I can assure you that the vast majority of people in this industry don't even know a single Muslim person in person. Like, I would love to know that all the people who claim that they've not been Islamophobic towards me, how many Muslims they actually know in person, because like the microaggressions that they have against Muslims, they exist. The implicit biases that they have against Muslims that they are not aware of exist. Like, that's why it's so easy for them to call me a TERF, even though I am in support of trans people having the rights that they deserve. But it's so easy to call a Muslim person a TERF because they'll just look at what is going on in Muslim countries. Like, oh, surely she must be against, against same-sex marriage. Surely she must be against this. Surely she must be against that. Like, no, like the implicit biases that people have against Muslims, there are a lot of them. There are a lot of microaggressions towards Muslims in this industry. But whenever I call it out, I'm just labeled as crazy. I'm just labeled as dangerous and all these other things, which in themselves are also Islamophobic comments, because these people are not willing to examine their own implicit biases against Muslims and their own microaggressions against Muslims. So they don't want to examine it when it comes to Muslims. And the vast majority of people in this industry, I can assure you, do not know a single Muslim person. Like, it's just ridiculous. This industry is just, it's just a shit show. Anyway, so no, I don't have a pro-Muslim agenda or an anti-Jewish agenda. And then he goes on to basically police my Twitter account. Like on Twitter, this person kept on saying that I should not be using my Twitter to talk about politics. I should not be using my Twitter to talk about my personal life. And he goes at length in this email that he sent to me to say the same thing. So it's my Twitter account and I can do whatever the fuck I want with it. Like, if you don't like what I'm posting on my Twitter account, then don't freaking follow me. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, if you think I'm making a bad business decision, then who cares? Like, that's my bad business decision to make. Like, why do you fucking care so much how I use my Twitter account? And I will say that he's wrong in saying that, it turns people off. It may turn some people off, sure. Like, but hello, look at all the other people in this industry who use their Twitter accounts for personal things as well as politics, as well as board game content. And yes, I talk about this person a lot, but let's look at Eric Lang. Eric Lang posts a ton of stuff about politics on his Twitter and now Blue Sky, his Facebook, elsewhere. And these are platforms that he also uses to represent himself as a board game designer. Now, you're probably going to say, well, board game designer and content creator are different. No, they're not fucking different, because as a board game designer, he wants publishers who will sign his games. He wants to make those connections with publishers. So he's still, maybe not appealing to certain publishers because of how vocal he is about Black Lives Matter or these other issues on Twitter and various social media platforms. The same way I might not appeal to certain people because of how vocal I am about Palestine and how vocal I am about Israel being a terrorist state. But then there are publishers who do want to work with me just because of that. Like, there are publishers who admire the fact that I am outspoken about issues which other people in this industry are not outspoken about. And I literally had people say that to me at Spiel Essen. Like, I literally had the publisher who wanted me to pitch my game to them, the person from that publishing company, say to me that one of the reasons he wanted to hear about my game is because he admires the fact that I am so outspoken about various things that are happening in the world, and that my life does not simply revolve around board games. Like, I have a lot going on in my life, and if you follow me on various social media platforms, you would know that. Like, I'm not a single issue person. Like, Palestine is not the sole issue I care about. I care about environmental conservation. I care about protecting animals. I take care of 2 colonies of stray cats every single day. Like, I dedicate so much time and money to that. Like, it's ridiculous how much money and time I have dedicated to taking care of these colonies of stray cats. Like, there's just so many issues that I care about. And I have a lot of hobbies. I take an art class every week. I play pickleball at least twice a week. Like, there's just so much that is going on in my life. It is not just board games. And if I decide to use my Twitter account to talk about my personal life or other things, then so be it, I can. And my source of income is not dependent on this industry. My livelihood is not dependent on this industry. So I can talk about whatever the fuck I want, and I don't care if people think that that's a bad business decision. That's, your right to think that, but like, seriously, sending me a long email, going into detail about what a bad decision it is, like why are you so obsessed with how I use my social media platforms? Like, kind of insane that someone is this invested in that. And then he goes on to talk about the whole Burnt Island Games thing, and lots of misinformation in his email about that. And but that's like old news. So I'm not even going to talk about that because, again, it's old news. And I've talked about it at length before. It had to do with Palestine and Israel, and it had to do with me calling Helena Kappel basically what she is, which is a Zionist. And people didn't like that I pointed out that she's a Zionist and that she doesn't like the phrase Palestinian Lives Matter. This was not about me just wanting to get a game to review. This was about Palestine. And if you think it's just about a game, then you really are uneducated. Like, you really, really are uneducated if you think it was simply about me just not getting a game, which this person seems to think it was. So again, uneducated. And then this person, again, has misinformation in his email. He says that I've allied with a certain person in this industry who is an asshole and a terrible person. Nope, have not allied with this person that this person is naming in this email. Have never even met this person. This person who sent me this email, this troll, accused me, said that I have hung out with this person. Where did he say that? Oh yeah, it says, but you hung out with him and defended him on a thread in BGG. Nope. So they're talking about David Levitt. I would love to know on which thread he thinks I defended this person. Have never defended David Levitt. Have never hung out with him in person. Do not know him in person. So have no idea where this bullshit came from. But again, misinformation. So I'm like, if you're gonna send me an email just bashing me and telling me what a horrible person I am and what terrible decisions I've made, at least be fucking accurate. At least do your research and be fucking accurate. Like, this is completely inaccurate information. I was quite angry when David Levitt used my name in order to claim that Rodney Smith is Islamophobic. I have previously called Rodney Smith Islamophobic, yes. But at the time that David Levitt used my name, I'm busy talking about Palestine and trying to raise awareness about what is going on in Palestine. And David Levitt is trying to use that to his own purposes, for his own purposes, which are personal to him and have nothing to do with me. So that did not make me happy, my name getting dragged into something in order for David to just, you know, create his own drama, which I had nothing to do with. When I call people Islamophobic, I'm talking about the Palestine-Israel conflict and going back to 2021 and people mass blocking me and calling me dangerous as a Muslim woman for, you know, raising awareness and calling someone a Zionist and so on. So again, misinformation here, whatever. Yeah, so there's just more of that. So I'm not going to go into more detail, but I got this email and I'm like, are you serious? Like, what is with people? Like, just, if you don't like my content, don't fucking watch it. If you don't like what I post on Twitter, don't fucking follow me. If you don't like what I post on Instagram, don't follow me. If you don't like what I post on whatever, don't follow me. You don't have to follow me. You don't have to watch my videos. Like, how is that so hard for people to understand? I recently got a comment on one of my videos saying, and this is a video back from 2020. So this is a video that's over 4 years old, an overview video. And the person comments, I'm so glad you're not my girlfriend. Like, okay, I wasn't asking to be your girlfriend. I've never once in one of my videos asked to be anyone's girlfriend. Like, when I post these videos, I'm talking about board games or other things. In no video have I ever said, hey guys, I'm single, would really love for someone to date me. Like, such bullshit comment. And then I responded to him saying the feeling is mutual. And then he responded saying that I talk too much and I would never listen to anyone. So you're gonna look at a video of mine in which I'm just talking to a camera, you know, creating a video content for my channel in which I do not have other people to like literally talk back to me to use as evidence that I talk too much and I would be a bad listener. So just to remind people, I am a lawyer, I'm an attorney, and as a part of my job, I need to be a really good damn listener. Like, when I am listening to people talk about their issues, which I then need to investigate or write about or research about, I need to be a pretty damn good listener in order to do that. And I am a damn good listener. So if you think I'm not a good listener, like, that's, again, just you being uneducated and you not knowing the whole story, you just, you know, using one snippet, using one video to judge me, which is insane. Like, it's stupid. Like, I just, you know, these people are crazy. So yeah, so I just wanted to address this email that I got, like, and just to say once again, like, yes, I know my content is not going to appeal to everyone, and that's fine. Like, there's a billion other content creators. Like, when I get people commenting on my videos saying how shit they are, it's like, okay, well, go find a video that you like then. Like, why are you wasting time posting a negative comment? Despite all the people I do not like in this industry, never once have I gone to anyone's video or page to tell them that I don't like their content, that I don't like their games, that I don't like X, Y, and Z. Because why would I do that? Like, that's stupid. Like, find something that you do like then and post about the things that you do like. Go follow and engage with the content that you do like then. Like, it's really not that hard to understand people. Like, okay? So yeah, so just wanted to address that, and we will talk about Palestine at length in the book club section because there's a lot to say there. So again, if you just watch me for the board game content, you don't have to stick around for my rants. You don't have to stick around for my Palestine content. You can skip over it. Like, I'm not going to know that you're skipping over it. Like, I don't care. Okay, so yeah, so that is that, and I hope that settles that, and I hope that we don't have to talk about this again. Like, if you don't like something, just don't watch it. Okay, all right, so let's move on. So let's talk about our fiction book first. So for today, we were supposed to read the first 4 chapters of What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. And this is a USA Today bestseller. And I thought it would be a good book to read this month because of Halloween. And it's supposed to be kind of like a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's story, which was something, The House of the Usher or something like that, The Fall of the House of the Usher, I believe, which I read a super duper long time ago. Like, I'm a huge Edgar Allan Poe fan, so maybe I should reread it because it's been a really long time and I have the whole Edgar Allan Poe collection, like all of his stories and poems, because I really love his work. But it's been such a long time and I honestly cannot remember anything about that story. So reading this, it's not bringing back memories of Edgar Allan Poe's story either. But you know, some of the comments on the back of this book say that it's a grotesque romp. It takes up residence beneath your skin and refuses to leave. Creepy, claustrophobic, and completely entertaining. I adored this book. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So anyway, so I read the first 4 chapters and I don't really have much to say about it. It's about this guy who like served in the army, you know, in some war, and he's come up to this woman's house who he knew. I can't remember what their relationship is, to be honest. Maybe I should read a bit more carefully. Oh yeah, but it starts with talking about mushrooms, and then even in chapter 4 there's a lot of talk about mushrooms. So I really want to know what like the story has to do with mushrooms. Like, what is it about mushrooms and the story? Like, they're also on the front cover. So you know, this chapter in chapter 4, it starts talking about whether mushrooms can grow underwater, whether they can have gills, and I'm just like, where is the story even going? Like, I have no idea yet. Like, I really do not understand where this book is going. So yeah, you know, there's a sickly woman in this house, and her relative or friend or whatever, you know, comes to the house because he received a letter saying that she's really ill. And so you learn a little bit about her illness. There's like some American guy there as well. There's like this woman who like is obsessed with mushrooms, like a mycologist. Like, I'm just like really confused with where the story is going. So right now I feel like it was just setting the background in the first 4 chapters. So I really don't have much to say about it. You know, I like the writing style. I think the writing style is good. Maybe a bit too flowery at times, but that's fine. But yeah, I feel like we haven't really even gotten into the plot yet. So that's my interpretation. If you've read the first 4 chapters, I would love to know what you think, because, you know, sometimes I just miss things. Like, sometimes when I'm reading, honestly, my mind can start like wandering, and then I'll have to reread something like 3 times to actually like get it in my head, because like I'm not actually paying attention to what I'm reading sometimes. So that is a problem when I read. You know, maybe I have ADHD, I really don't know. But yeah, so if you have read the first 4 chapters, please tell me what you think, and I would love to know. And for the next week, read the next 4 chapters. So read chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8, and hopefully we will get more plot, because right now I really don't know what the plot is yet. Like, right now there's just a creepy house. There's a lot of talk about mushrooms. There's talk about a cow accidentally being killed. Oh, and there was one word that I actually didn't know the meaning of. I should have highlighted it and looked it up later, because now I can't even find the word. I'm like, there was something about dressing the cow on the field, and I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? Like, what does that mean? Does anyone know what dressing the cow on the field means? There was something about that. And there was another word that I think I didn't know the meaning of, like larder or something. I think it was called larder. I need to find that word and look it up. I should have done that as I was actually reading it, but again, sometimes just distracted. So yeah, so let me know what you thought, and let's read the next 4 chapters for next week. And I think it's a pretty short book, so we should have it finished pretty soon. So yeah, but I hope you're enjoying it. I think I'm enjoying it so far, so I guess that's good. So yeah, so let's move on. So let's talk about the conclusion of the 100 Years' War on Palestine. So we did it, you guys. We reached the end of this book, which I am so happy about. Like, you know, it was a pretty heavy read. So if you read this with me, like, I think you should be proud of yourselves for reading this heavy academic book, because it was really heavy and it was, you know, quite academic, but a very important read given what's going on today. And this conclusion, like, oh my god, like, so important for what is happening right now. So let's go through this conclusion, and as usual, I'll talk about what's happening right now as I'm going through the conclusion with you guys. But I highlighted so much in this chapter, so it might be a very long section. So, you know, he starts the conclusion with the horrible person Balfour's quote. So he said that the British government did not propose even to go through the form of consulting the wishes of the present inhabitants of the country. So they were committed to Zionism, and Zionism, be it right or wrong, good or bad, is rooted in age-long traditions and present needs and future hopes so far profounder import than the desires and prejudices of the 700,000 Arabs who now inhabit that ancient land. So here they are very blatantly saying that they just simply do not care what the 700,000 Arabs in 1917 in Palestine have to say about Zionism and people coming in, kicking them out of their homes and taking over their land. Like, that has always been the case. Palestinians, viewpoints, their feelings, their lives just do not matter. So yeah, the center of the Palestinians' history, identity, culture, and worship was thus summarily disposed of without even the pretense of consulting their wishes. And that continues on today. Let's see. There's a whole paragraph that I just put a huge line next to as being really important. And that is the paragraph on page 238 about the United States and just how they would go back and forth between paying lip service to the existence of the Palestinians and trying to exclude them from the map on the Middle East. So, it describes a whole lot of events which we've already talked about that appeared in previous chapters. Okay, so here we go into about how this Zionist movement is imposing a colonial reality on Palestine in a post-colonial age. And that's one of the reasons it's so problematic today, right? Here you have a colonial state, a colonial entity, Israel, trying to impose colonialism in an age where people are educated about what colonialism actually is. And that's why you see so many Zionists trying to reverse it, trying to say that the Palestinians were the colonizers and that they were the indigenous people, which is not the case. Like, okay, maybe, a long time ago in ancient times, there was a large Jewish population there, yes, but then they left. There was an exodus, and maybe you think that the Muslims are responsible for that. Maybe you think the Christians are responsible for that, whatever. But it happened so long ago. And, if we're looking at who the people were that had been living in this area for centuries before, Zionism came to be, it was the Palestinians. But they've been really trying to reverse play it, like reverse Uno it, and claim that the Palestinians were the colonizers and that the Jewish people were the indigenous people. But the vast majority of Israelis today in Israel do not have Levantine DNA. They do not have DNA that actually is associated with that region. They have European DNA. And that is the reason that DNA tests are actually outlawed in Israel. I think that's a thing that many people don't know, that DNA tests are actually outlawed in Israel. And there's a reason for that. So yeah, it says, thus at the dawn of decolonization, we were returned to the earliest, most intense form of colonial menace, exclusivist settler colonialism. So it talks about Iqbal Ahmed, who was a Pakistani who in 1947 was, talking about the partition of Pakistan and talking about India and Pakistan coming out of colonial rule from England and stuff. And this is the same time when multiple nations are coming out of being controlled by the colonial powers, when here's one nation taking over and colonizing Palestine. So it says, if this were the 18th or 19th century, if the Palestinians were as few as the Zionist settlers or as fully decimated as the native peoples of Australia and North America. Oh, sorry, I should have read the first part. So it's basically saying that had this happened in another era, replacing the indigenous population might have been feasible. But it's not feasible today because we are in a more enlightened era where people are realizing that when they're colonized and trying to break free of their colonizers. So that's what that sentence was about. So yeah. And then it says that, I'll skip over that part, that's fine. It says settler colonial confrontations with indigenous peoples have only ended in one of three ways. With the elimination or full subjugation of the native population, as in North America, and yeah, where seeing that in Palestine as well, with the defeat and expulsion of the colonizer, as in Algeria, which is extremely rare. So that's the second way it could end. Or with the abandonment of colonial supremacy in the context of compromise and reconciliation, as in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Ireland. Now, there's a reason that so many South Africans and Irish people and Africans, you know, from Zimbabwe and other places are very, very empathetic to the Palestinian cause because they went through it themselves. There's a reason if you go to Ireland, you will see so many pro-Palestinian like images, graffiti throughout the entirety of the nation. And that's why, you know, I love the Irish. I love them for standing up for a group of people who is currently being colonized and oppressed because they know what it's like. They went through it themselves. And you know, look at the people in South Africa who were fighting apartheid and were fighting colonialism. They were seen as terrorists at the time. They're only seen as freedom fighters now, but back then they were seen as terrorists. Just as Yahya Sinwar, who was the leader of Hamas who was killed, is seen as a terrorist. But maybe someday, if Palestine is free, he will be seen as the freedom fighter that he was. Did he do some terrible things? Yes. Has Israel done a shit ton of more terrible things? Yes. And as we've seen, the International Court of Justice say that when you are, you know, fighting, when you are resisting colonialism, you are able to use violence in order to resist colonialism because literally they have nothing else they can do. So using violence as a colonized people is sanctioned by international bodies because they literally have no other means. Do I agree with it? Do I ever agree with killing civilians? I personally do not, and I talked about this in the last video, but here are people that, you know, literally have nothing else they can do. And we've seen so much in this book about how they have no rights, they have no electricity, they have no water, they have no food, they have no this, they have no that. Like, they're like economically in the worst position. They're basically in a large ghetto and one of the most populated, densely populated ghettos in the world. I mean, now they're just being completely forced out of that ghetto, which is Gaza. I mean, but like, we've gone through all of this. We've gone through how Israel has treated them as less than human, and they literally had nothing. So yes, Hamas is a resistance group, and right now it's seen as a terrorist group, but maybe someday it will be seen as the resistance group that it was meant to be, just like in South Africa, where now those people who were considered to be terrorists are now today seen as freedom fighters. Yeah, so, you know, this book mentions the 3 ways in which this can end. So we're already seeing the elimination or full subjugation of the native population. Like, we're seeing every attempt being made at that right now. And the chapter, like, it's very eerie in which he goes through, and I'm going to talk about those sentences later on, where he says, oh, this is unlikely to happen. And the things that he said were unlikely to happen are happening right now. So that is really quite scary, that here is this academic, this scholar on the Palestinian suffering, who thought that certain things would not come to pass, and those things have come to pass now. That's just really, really frightening. Yeah, so there's just so much I highlighted, so obviously I can't go through all of it, but let's see what I can go through. Oh yeah, so here's one. Explicit plans for annexation in the West Bank and leading Israeli parliamentarians calling for the removal of some or all of the Palestinian population, blah, blah, blah. It says, still, the odds so far seem against Israel taking such a step. Nope. Like, they have started to take those steps. Like, we've seen them in the West Bank, killing more and more people in the West Bank, which had no Hamas in it, starting to build illegal settlements in the West Bank. Like, that is literally happening as we speak right now. There have been more Palestinians killed in the West Bank than ever before. So it is being annexed by Israel as we speak. So it's already happening. Let's see. Okay, so, you know, it talks about how can the Palestinians succeed. So it says there's a fallacy that needs to be dismantled. Dismantling this fallacy and making the true nature of the conflict evident is a necessary step if Palestinians and Israelis are to transition to a post-colonial future in which one people does not use external support to oppress and supplant the other. So, you know, we've seen so much of this fallacy that he talked about earlier, which is that the Zionism. So it says Zionism rests on the fact, continuing this project rests on the fact that the basically colonial nature of the encounter in Palestine has not been visible to most Americans and many Europeans. Israel appears to them to be a normal, natural nation state like any other, faced by the irrational hostility of intransigent and often anti-Semitic Muslims, which is how Palestinians, even the Christians among them, are seen by many. So this is the image that Israel propagates to continue with its extermination of Palestinians. Like, we've seen this our entire lives. Palestinians are terrorists. They're, Israel's just defending itself. Israel's just, doing self-defense, while Palestinians are the terrorists just trying to kill every Israeli, when the numbers point to a very different picture. And even within the board game industry, like, people in the board game industry need to fucking read this book, because their silence shows you, and their double standards show you, that they believe in this bullshit, which is why they will not speak up against Israel, which is why they will not speak up against Zionism, and they're just afraid. They're too fucking afraid to say anything because they don't want to be seen as anti-Semitic. They're basically victims of Israeli propaganda. Like, they're just apparently not intelligent enough to rise above this Israeli propaganda. Like, seriously. Yeah, so, again, it talks a lot about Israel, just using this propaganda to further its colonial project. It talks about some other comparisons that have been made in order for Israel to continue with its Zionist colonial project. And then it says, going to Americans and why Americans have such a hard time understanding the truth of the matter, it says, the terms settler and pioneer have positive connotations in American history, arising from the heroic tale of the conquest of the West at the expense of its indigenous population as projected in movies, literature, and television. Indeed, there are striking parallels between these portrayals of the resistance of Native Americans to their dispossession and that of the Palestinians. Both groups are cast as backwards, uncivilized, a violent, murderous, and irrational obstacle to progress and modernity. That is 100% true. And that is why we see so many Native Americans who are empathetic to the Palestinian cause, because they have been exactly through the same fucking thing. Yeah, the United States has yet to fully acknowledge these dark chapters of its past or to address their toxic effects in the present. 100%, again, which is why so many Americans are pro-Zionist and just fully unable to acknowledge what Israel truly is. So he goes on into discussing what really needs to happen for change for the Palestinians. Oh, he talked a lot about President Trump and all the things that Trump did. So that was, very interesting. I highlighted so much, so I'm like, where do I even begin? It talks a lot about what Palestinians need to do, and I agree with what he says in here. Like, Palestinians really need an effort to educate people in America. They need to have some kind of an established, they need to establish themselves in America and start getting the word out more and more. And we've been seeing that in the last year, but they have not been able to do it and influence American thought in a way that Zionist people have since the early times of when Zionism began. So you've seen Zionists enter American politics. You've seen AIPAC establish itself. Zionists have been making their voices heard in this country for a very, very long time. And Jill Stein recently said that AIPAC should be seen as an international, what did she say? Like, she used a word which I was like 100%. Like, AIPAC is an international, like, it's an un-American international body interfering in, like, American politics. Like, it's influencing American politics so much that American interests are being ignored for the interests of Israelis. Like, we are literally like second Israel. We are little Israel. We are just basically pushing up and propagating Israel. Like, that is what America's purpose has become. And is that what America is supposed to be? And I know people might be watching this video and be like, oh, you're a child of immigrants, you're not American, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was fucking born in this country, and I can assure you that me and my family have probably contributed way more to America than a lot of Americans in this country have. You know, so like, for example, I was a legal aid attorney for 7 years, helping underprivileged people. My sisters are both doctors, and, you know, who take care of anyone, regardless of their political affiliation, regardless of their religion, regardless of their race. Like, you know, we contribute to society. We pay our taxes. So yes, we are Americans. And even if I am a child of immigrants, I can still call myself an American because I was born in this country and I contribute to this country. My taxes are paying for a genocide. So yeah. So let's see. Oh yeah, just a lot more of the same. But honestly, like, it's just so scary how this just was really like foretelling what was going to happen in the last year. Yeah, I mean, just more of the same of what we know. Like, for example, modern Zionism is increasingly in contradiction with the ideals, particularly that of equality on which Western democracies are based. 100%. So for a country like America that claims to be so democratic, like, you are supporting a fascist state. You are supporting an apartheid state. Israel, you can claim all day that it's the only fucking democracy in the Middle East, but does it behave like it? Not at all. And America benefits by having these dictatorships, by having these monarchies, by having these authoritarian regimes in the Middle East. America benefits from that. So America does not fucking care about democracy. Like, we can go back to the coup in Iran, when, you know, America overthrew a democratically elected leader with the British for their own fucking interests. Like, if you want to talk about how Iran is such a mess now and it's a theocratic, like, fascist regime, blah, 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 like, that's the doing of the Americans. Like, if you had not reinstated the fucking Shah and upset so many Iranians when the Shah came back into power, and he was not this really benevolent monarch that people try to make him out to be these days. Like, people were really pretty fucking upset with the Shah, and that's how the Islamic regime was able to take over. Like, the Islamic government would not have come to be had people been happy with the Shah. So these are things to think about. And the Shah was reinstated by America after the coup, after they overthrew a democratically elected leader. And the US has been responsible for so much bullshit around the world like this. Like, it only cares for its own fucking interests. So yeah, so, you know, here's a country that is completely undemocratic, Israel, and it can state every day, all day, that it's a democratic nation. It's not. It's fucking not. Yeah, it talks about the insecurity that the people in Israel are actually suffering from, rooted in part in this history and perhaps apart from an unspoken concern that the carefully constructed and justified colonial reality they live in might suddenly unravel. Like, you know, because when you are upholding a lie, it's really hard to uphold a fucking lie. Like, lying takes effort. Telling the truth does not take effort. Lying takes effort. When you have to convince the whole fucking world that you are not a colonial power, that you are the victim, they spend billions and billions and billions of dollars every year on their propaganda. Like, it is very costly to them in order to convince the world that they are the victims. So yes, they are going to be fucking scared. Like, the amount of videos I have seen of Zionists, like, crying and, like, you know, acting like their lives are in danger from, like, these rockets being fired on them, which we've already discussed pose, like, literally no fucking threat to them. And, you know, it's literally the Palestinians who are being killed in the hundreds of thousands and are suffering a genocide. And then you see people crying like their lives are in danger in Israel when they're perfectly fucking fine. Like, it takes a lot of effort to try to convince the world that you're the victim when you're not the victim. So yes, of course they're going to be afraid of this all unraveling, and it is unraveling. And that's why, like I said in the last video, or maybe I said it on Instagram, the more the world starts to see Israel for what it is, the more Israelis and Zionists cry anti-Semitism, the more they cry blood libel, because they have to cry harder and harder to convince the world that they are the victim. Alrighty, oh God, so much highlighting. Okay. Yeah, an interesting part of this chapter is where Palestinians assume that their nationalism is pure and historically rooted while denying the same of Israeli Jews. And then it talks about Israelis doing the same thing of Palestinians. So what is the solution here? What is the solution? So either we saw the three outcomes that he mentioned before. The three outcomes are that the indigenous population is completely exterminated, which is what Israel is so desperately trying to do right now, or that the colonial power is completely removed, which is what the Palestinian people would probably like to see. They probably, a lot of them want to see their homes returned to them. They want to see the state of Israel to cease to exist. That does not mean that they want to see all Jews to be removed from Israel. No, but they want Zionism to come to an end, and they want the state to come to an end. The third option was that you come to some kind of an understanding and reconciliation. And in this case, that would be a one-state solution, not a two-state solution, because at this point, I don't know if a two-state solution is possible. I don't know if a one-state solution is ever possible either. Like the things that are going on right now, like I'm not an expert and I can't even come up with a way which it might be possible right now. Like, how do you make reparations to Palestinians who were kicked out of their homes in the Nakba? And now you've had Israelis living in those homes for, 50 or more years, 75 or more years. What do? Do you now kick them out of the houses and let the Palestinians move back in and maybe build new houses for those Israelis? Like, you have to come up with some kind of a plan where. And this is something that I've learned as a lawyer. So whenever I went to litigation in court, and the judge would always say, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to mediate first. And a mediation is successful when both parties come away unhappy, like not fully satisfied. Like in a mediation, no one party is going to be like super happy and be like, I won. In a mediation, everyone comes back feeling like they lost a little bit, but they also gained a little bit. And that's what needs to happen here. Like if you want to see this conflict, this genocide come to an end, the ongoing subjugation of Palestinians come to an end, you need to come to a resolution where both sides are not fully happy. Because if one side is fully happy and the other side is not, then that's not a good solution. You need to come up with something where both people are like, we gained a little bit and we lost a little bit, but we can live with this. So that's the way it has to resolve. I don't see any other way for it to resolve. And until people come to that understanding, it's never going to, fix itself. You see people who have been kicked out of their homes like more than 75 years ago, and they're just very angry. They've seen their entire family lines eliminated, exterminated. Like they've seen their entire families beheaded and shredded to bits. Like there is a lot of anger there. There is justifiably a lot of anger. And how do you tell people who've been through that, hey, come to the table and let's negotiate now? I don't know. I'm not Palestinian, and I cannot even imagine being a Palestinian who has seen their sisters, their brothers, their children, their parents beheaded or ground up to bits. One of the things that was on the news recently, so CNN did an article about an Israeli soldier and the PTSD that this soldier is suffering from. And buried within this article, buried within it, was this soldier, this murderer, saying that he can no longer eat meat because of all the people he had to run over with his heavy machinery and basically ground up Palestinians alive. Like literally their bodies would burst, the meat would come out of them. We've seen images of this. I've seen images of it. It's beyond horrific. And here this poor soldier, this poor killer can no longer eat meat because he's suffering from PTSD. Like we're supposed to feel sorry for this guy who ran over humans, alive humans, to kill them, squished their bodies, caused their bodies to explode and meat to come flying out of them. And we're supposed to feel sorry for the killer that he's suffering from PTSD. Like you could have fucking not done that. You could have fucking resisted. You could have fucking said, no, Israel, I'm not going to fight for you because I don't want to engage in a genocide. Like, imagine if he had done that. Imagine if more and more people had done that. I've seen videos of Israelis standing up and saying, no, we're not going to join the IOF. We're not going to join the Israeli occupation forces. We're not going to engage in this genocide. He could have done that, but now he's suffering from PTSD and we're supposed to fucking feel sorry for him. Like, no, I don't feel sorry for these fucking soldiers who have massacred, killed, and beheaded, and shredded, and done the most horrific things to the Palestinians. So yeah, let's go into all the things that Trump has done. So Trump made the deal of the century where basically, he dispensed with decades of bedrock U.S. policies, and he basically, gave Jerusalem to Israel. And that goes against policies. Like, Jerusalem was the last thing that was going to be decided upon once these two sides would someday hopefully be able to reach some kind of solution. Then Jerusalem was supposed to be the last thing, but Trump just gave it away to them. And, it talks about the various advisors he had, and like, these people don't have any fucking foreign policy background. Like, his realtor, his banker, like, here they are having these Zionist ties, deciding what happens to the Palestinians. Like, it is just beyond messed up. So yeah, it talks a lot about what he did and how he basically turned, he basically, ruined any chances of Palestinians ever having the right to negotiate or bargain, trying to get what they want. He basically gave Israel all the power that it ever wanted, and left Palestinians with no voice whatsoever. So here is like a summary of all the things he did. The initiative seemed to have come prepackaged from the Israeli Rights Storehouse of Ideas, moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing the annexation of the Golan, airily dispensing with the Palestinian refugee issue, trying to liquidate UNRWA, and withdrawing from the Obama-era nuclear agreement with Iran. Only a few items remained on Netanyahu's wish list. And this is where it's eerie, because this is where we're getting to it right now. Annexation of much of the West Bank. Formal American rejection of sovereign Palestinian statehood. The creation of a toothless Palestinian quisling leadership. The entire package meant to coerce the Palestinians to accept that they are a defeated people. Like, we are literally seeing the annexation of Gaza and the West Bank. Like, Gaza has been completely obliterated. The figures about what has happened in Gaza, like the amount of damage, the amount of bombs dropped, like totaling more than all the bombs dropped of like the previous world wars and all these other wars that have happened, the casualties, the death toll in Palestine of all the civilians, like far outnumbers like the Ukrainians who've been killed, like since the start of the Ukraine invasion by Russia. Like, there's just so much that we're seeing that, how bad it is. And Gaza's like not going to be able to be rebuilt in a year. It would take many, 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 many years to be rebuilt, because like literally everything has been destroyed. Everything's been destroyed. Yeah, he talks about all these other Arab regimes that have basically aided and abetted in, keeping Palestine subjugated, which I've talked about at length before. Like, I fucking hate Saudi Arabia. I think I've mentioned that numerous times, and these other Arab states, which just do not give a shit, clearly. It talks about, now here's an interesting thing. It says, it is a searing indictment of both Fatah and Hamas that in recent decades, civil society initiatives such as the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, and student activism have done more to further the Palestinian cause than anything either of these two main factions has undertaken. And that's quite true. And we're seeing that. We're seeing on campuses across the U.S. when people are protesting, creating these encampments, and how they're doing so much to further the cause of the Palestinian movement. And universities across America are trying to quash those encampments, trying to quash the protests, because they know it's working. It's working. The boycott, divestment, sanctions are working. That's why Starbucks has lost so many of its profits, and McDonald's, like all these big corporations claiming that they've had the worst year on record. There is a reason for that. The boycotts, these things work. Oh yeah, and it says, one thing that the Palestinians have to come to realize, and I don't know, like they should have come to realize this a long fucking time ago. Like if they didn't, I would say that you need better leadership. That the United States is not and cannot be a mediator, a broker, or a neutral party. It has long opposed Palestinian national aspirations and has formally committed itself to support the Israeli government's position on Palestine. Like, hello, we've fucking known this for a very long time. Like that should have been clear to the Palestinians from a long fucking time ago. Yeah. What else? Yeah, it mentions India, and I just want to talk about India a bit because I don't know if you guys have seen this, but maybe if you don't follow social media and the genocide like I do, you might not have seen this, but like I'm inundated with genocide content and pro-Zionist content on every platform, right? So the algorithm always wants to show me all the pro-Zionist shit, even though, So there are so many pro-Zionist Indians, and I'll tell you why that is, because the current party in India, which is a very pro-Hindu nationalist party, and there have been so many atrocities committed against Muslims in India, which you just will not hear about on the news. There have been so many Muslims killed and raped and have had terrible things happen to them. And because of their anti-Muslim hatred, there are so many Indians who are pro-Zionist, and you'll see so many posts on social media. India stands with Israel. India stands with Israel. Blah, 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 blah. Well, Israel doesn't fucking care about India. Like, they are making complete fools of themselves, but that's for them to find out themselves. Like, it's really a complete joke. Like, I'm like, it's so cringe because like these Indians just are too dumb to realize like these Israelis don't give a fucking shit about you. But yeah, keep on, propping them up and telling them how much you love them. Like they really do not care about you. Like there was someone who was killed recently in Israel in the IOF, and they did not want him to be buried in an Israeli cemetery. Like that's how much they care about you. You want to go and fight for them, they'll take your life, they'll take your blood, they'll happily have you commit war crimes, but then you can't be buried in the same cemetery as them, sorry. So, it's their rules. Yeah. So, I mean, the conclusion just basically was kind of showing us what is happening. It was showing us, not kind of, is showing us what's happening today, which a lot of things that, the author thought would not come to be because they just seemed, despite everything that Israel has been able to do, they just seemed so horrific that he thought that it would not come to that, but it has come to that. So we are seeing the mass extermination, the genocide of the Palestinians now. And I need to find some content of Rashid Khalidi's, because I know last year when the genocide began, he did some talks and stuff, and I haven't really watched any of those, to be honest, but I need to. So yeah, but I need to find out what he thinks, because I'm really curious now. This conclusion was written years ago, I think when Trump was still president, or maybe, yeah. So I really want to know what he thinks now about how this can be solved. And I would like to know what you think. Like, having finished this book now, what do you think? What do you think is the solution? Like, we're just lay people. We're not going to be able to, I think, come up with a sophisticated plan. But if it were up to you, what would you want to see done? How would you resolve this issue? Yeah, I would really love to know that. So leave in the comments below how you would like to see this issue resolved if it were up to you. I'm just curious to know your thoughts. And for the next book club, so I, saw some of the comments that people left, and based on the comments that people have left, I believe we should read Elan Papp's book, the 10 Myths of Israel. So let me just look it up again. Elan Papp. So I need to look up the exact title. I haven't purchased it yet, so I need to purchase it myself. So he had a couple of books that I thought looked interesting, but it was the one about the myths of Israel that I was most interested in. So I would like for us to read that next, because the ethnic cleansing of Palestine seems really good and interesting as well. But I feel like we already know that Israel is ethnically cleansing Palestine. Like that we definitely already know. Where is that myths book? I cannot find it now. That's weird. That's weird. I know I found it last week. Sorry, let me just... Elin Pap myths. Okay, there we go. 10 myths about Israel. So yeah, is it even available on Amazon now? Okay, here it is. Yeah. So I don't know how long, well, I guess I can see how long it is on Amazon. But I don't know how long each chapter is, but it says it's 192 pages. So since I don't have it with me right now, let's just read the first chapter for next time. Or if there's an introduction, if the introduction is short, then read both the introduction and the first chapter. If the introduction is really long, then just read the introduction. We can play it by ear. So the next book for our book club will be 10 Myths About Israel, which was actually published back in 2017. I do wonder if he has a more recent book, but I still think that that would be interesting to read. But 2017, I think, is also when this book was published, right? Yeah, but I think that that might be his, oh, here's one that's more recent. Lobbying for Zionism on Both Sides of the Atlantic. That was published in July 2024. But that's a hardcover book. How many pages is this? Oh my God, 608 pages. Okay, that's very long. Purchase that and feel free to read it on your own time if you want to. I might actually purchase it because that, it's gotten good ratings. It's a very recent release. And it sounds very interesting because we do see Zionism being lobbied for everywhere. So I might get that too. But let's read the 10 Myths of Israel. If you can get your hands on it. If for some reason you cannot get your hands on it, let me know, and then we'll have to decide to read another book if people are having a hard time purchasing it based on where they're located. Like, I know one of my readers is in Portugal, so if you're having a hard time, let me know in the comments below. But let's just plan on reading the introduction and the first chapter of 10 Myths of Israel for next time. So let's move on. So I didn't mention it while we were talking about the book club, but there was something that came up recently. So one person from the industry posted on Facebook asking, if people discuss politics on their social media accounts, does it prevent you from wanting to purchase from a certain publisher or something like that? Let me just find the exact post. I'm not going to name names. But let me just find the exact post, but I'm sure most people probably know who I'm talking about. So, let me find the post. Okay, here we go. Curious, what do you do when you see a business or company post political posts endorsing a candidate or against a candidate that you disagree with? Do you ignore, engage, or choose to stop doing business with them? So someone responded to this comment, and they work for Lucky Duck Games. And they wrote, just like my comment about X, the same applies here. The end goal of every company is profitability, right? On that we agree, but there are many paths to take to get there, and min/maxing to the exclusion or moral values held isn't one I agree with. I can't fight all the fights, but I will support the ones I have the bandwidth to support while still maintaining profitability. For example, we, Lucky Duck Games, stopped working with Russia until the invasion of Ukraine ends, which can cost us maybe $1 million a year in sales. So Lucky Duck stopped working with Russia has decided to stop working with Russia until the invasion of Ukraine ends. So I responded asking this person, did your company also stop working with Israel until the genocide of the Palestinian ends? More Palestinians have been killed in the span of a year than Ukrainians have been since the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This person responded, that's a fair question, and like I said, we have to pick and choose our battles. I'd love to save the elephants, trying to appeal to my passion for saving elephants, clean the oceans, and not manufacture in China, but we still have employee wages to pay. In this case, for us, we have Ukrainian friends and family within the company who were impacted. No one company can completely divorce themselves of any sort of worldwide politics. Some don't try at all, and in that way, they do maintain a sort of neutrality, and some have to pick and choose. So here we do see a double standard, but again, he mentions that there are people within Lucky Duck who are Ukrainian or have friends and family in Ukraine, so they've been impacted by that. And it's very possible that they don't know any Palestinians and I can totally believe that, because the vast majority of people in this industry don't, I'm pretty sure, have no Muslim friends, have never probably interacted with a Muslim in person, which is crazy. They don't know Arabs, they don't know Muslims, they don't know people of this background, which is why they tend to believe in a lot of the bullshit that they are fed with, like the propaganda, the Israeli propaganda, which is why you don't see them standing up for Muslims, which is why everyone was able to jump on the Black Lives Matter bandwagon, but no one's willing to jump on the Palestinian lives bandwagon. Like Rodney Smith to this day hasn't, revised his bullshit statement from last November, or whatever it was, where he made that whole bullshit statement about why he won't condemn the genocide. I don't remember exactly when that statement was made. But yeah, so people don't have the same ties or connection with Arabs and Muslims, and so they just don't care as much. I will say that, and I've said this before on my channel, that if there is a company who has not said a single thing about anything, then I would be fine with that. Like, if there is a company who has never posted Black Lives Matter, if there is a company who has never said anything about anything, I would be fine with that company because they are not showing bias and they are not showing double standards. However, if you are a company who has publicly condemned Russia, but you are not publicly condemning Israel, then that is a fucking double standard. Like, you are taking sides. You are showing, hey, I had the capacity or whatever to make a post about this. Like, it was important enough for us to post about this, but the genocide of the Palestinians, that's not important enough for us to post about. Like, we can't take like 10 seconds to make a tweet about it. It's just not fucking important enough. Like, you are showing your double standards then, and the vast majority of this industry has shown their double standards. And yes, I am very vocal about how much I hate Kamala Harris. I'm very vocal about how I will not vote for her because, and I've been very vocal about all the gamers for Harris, how I believe that they are basically gamers for genocide. So, people are picking and choosing which issues matter to them. To them, genocide is not a deal-breaking issue. To me, it fucking is. Like, genocide, I don't know what is worse on earth than genocide. Like, am I going to put my own personal interests above the interests of millions of people in other parts of the world? Like, am I going to vote for Harris because it might lower the cost of groceries? Like, fuck no. First of all, Biden and Harris have been in office for 4 fucking years. If they wanted to lower the cost of groceries, they could have fucking done that already. Like, you could have fucking lowered the cost of groceries in the last 4 years, but you did not fucking do that. So when I see her responding to a question, recently she was asked a question, what do you say about those people who are voting third party because they are, witnessing what's happening with the genocide and they're happy with the administration not doing anything about it, not, calling for a ceasefire, blah, blah, blah. She completely ignores the question and starts talking about the cost of groceries. Like, and whenever she talks about Palestinians being killed, it's with a fucking smirk on her face. Like, genocide is not funny. These lives are just completely expendable to her. Like, they are not human to her if she can talk about a genocide with a fucking smirk on her face and then just start talking about groceries. The cost of groceries is important to lots of people, but to me, it is not more fucking important than a genocide. If there are people, it's being live streamed, that people are being beheaded, being shredded to bits, there's people with their insides spilling out of them, being squished out of them, like people who have been evaporated by these bombs, like just completely disappeared. Like, how is that more fucking important than the cost? How is that not more fucking important than the cost of groceries? How is that not more fucking important than any issue that we have to deal with in America? And as people have said before, we survived 4 years of Trump. You know who hasn't survived 4 years of Biden? The Palestinians. They have not survived 4 years of Biden. So yeah. So that's that. And I understand that Trump will also just carry on with the genocide. Like, I completely understand that. But again, a vote for Jill Stein is not a vote for Trump. A vote for Jill Stein is a vote for Jill Stein. And if every single person who claims to be a leftist, who claims to be a liberal, actually did the liberal thing and voted for Jill Stein, maybe we'd actually fucking see some change in this country. But we're not going to see any fucking change because people are happy with accepting the genocidal status quo because they are privileged and they can do that. So when I see people gaslighting Muslims and Arabs and trying to make them feel like shit for not voting for Kamala? Like, no, you're a fucking privileged asshole that you can make Muslims and Arabs try to feel that way. Like, you are not having your family and friends being exterminated. You don't get to tell Arabs and Muslims how they should vote. You don't get to tell Arabs and Muslims how they should feel when the whole world is fucking ignoring their genocide. You don't get to tell them that. And the vast majority of this gaming industry just doesn't give a shit. Like, I've said it time and time again, all these gamers for Harris, to me, it looks like gamers for genocide. When I see the names on those lists, it is gamers for genocide. It is not gamers for Harris. They are not talking about the genocide. Like, if you wanted me to believe that you actually care about the Palestinians, because I've seen a number of people retweet stuff that says, oh, by voting for Jill, you're not going to help the Palestinians. You're actually going to make it worse for them. And that's like literally the only thing that they've actually ever said about the genocide. So they're trying to make people feel guilty for voting for Jill Stein, and saying that it's not going to help the Palestinians. And that's literally all they've said about the Palestinians. So don't try to convince me that you actually care about the Palestinians and that's why you're voting for Harris. Like, no, you don't fucking care about the Palestinians. You're voting for Harris because you only fucking care about yourself and you only care about your interests. You don't care about how our government impacts the rest of the world. And that is why a lot of the world looks at America with disdain. Like, oh, here are these Americans who fucking can do whatever they want in the rest of the world, and they just don't care about the impact that their politics have on the rest of the world. And that is just the fucking truth. So yeah, so the gamers for genocide, you know, they're all voting for genocide. I'm voting for Jill Stein, and I hope my words have reached someone. And honestly, I truly believe, and I know for a fact, I saw some statistics recently about Ross Perot, and he was a third-party candidate, and how much of the vote he won, and how much more he needed that would have actually made him president. The same can happen for Jill Stein. If Jill Stein received enough votes, she could be our president, but people are not going to vote for her because they're fucking stupid. So yeah, so, you know, people don't want to vote for Jill Stein because they think it's a vote for Trump. No, a vote for Jill Stein is a vote for Jill Stein. Like, she is the only person who is speaking out against the genocide right now. Trump is not doing that. Kamala is not doing that. Neither of them is speaking out against the genocide. Jill, a Jewish woman, is. She is the only person speaking out against the genocide. But people just want to call her a Russian implant. They want to call her all these names to discredit her, which is just complete bullshit. And if they bother to do any research, they would know what complete bullshit that is, because all of these myths about Jill Stein have been debunked already. So I'm not going to sit here and educate you about Jill Stein. You need to fucking educate yourself. And unfortunately, people in this industry just are not interested in educating themselves. Like, people in this industry are some of the most uneducated people I've come across on social media, who will just, you know, blindly believe whatever someone says to them. Like, whenever their god, Eric Lang, opens his fucking mouth and says something stupid, they will just automatically believe it and be like, oh yeah, Eric Lang said this about Israel. He must be right because he published, he designed Blood Rage. That makes him an expert on fucking everything. No, it does not make him a fucking expert on everything. Same with Rodney Smith. Same with whoever else these people worship in this industry. They are not fucking gods. They are not educated on these topics, and you need to go fucking educate yourselves and stop looking to social media influencers to influence the most important decisions you will make in your life. And, you know, that's just the way it is. So yeah, so I hope people will take the time to educate themselves, read fucking books, and educate yourselves. So that is my rant of the week. And by the time, so next week's video will be the last video before Election Day, and then we will see what happens. So it is kind of scary. We'll see what happens. So anyway, so let's move on. So let's talk about this week's question of the week. So I've already asked you guys what your favorite sea-themed game was before, and I don't want to ask the same question again. So I guess I want to ask you, what is your favorite, like, abstract kind of tile placement game that can have any theme with it, like this kind of game was, as I described in the segment earlier. So let me know what your favorite, like, abstract kind of game is that can have any theme. That could be like Cascadia, which is also kind of like an abstract strategy game with a nature theme just kind of put on it. But it could have been about any other theme as well, right? So just let me know what your favorite abstract strategy tile placement game is. And until next week, bye.